Hello and good afternoon, good evening, and in some places like the UK, good morning. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's new episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends. And ladies and gentlemen, we have an outstanding show for you. Before we get into the nitty gritty of the show, I have to do this because, well, it's always important to get new voices and feature new talent on the shows that I do. And I am proud, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome in Hargeet Chani, who is now an official brother of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends. Hargeet, thanks so much for joining us. You're going to be here every week. What's up, brother? Welcome.
Wow, thanks, and yeah, it'll be great. We'll hopefully have a lot of fun every Wednesday.
Oh yeah, no. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun. In fact, this particular podcast is going to be fun. It's also going to be very steamy. We have a lot to get
Yeah.
into. Brad Smith, obviously of president of Microsoft, has been out there in these YouTube streets making some big comments. Now, Everborn Saga, who is not here yet. He's running late from work, folks. He actually had to go into the office today. He will be here. I built this entire show around something that he had said privately to us, where he thinks that when you put one and one together, it makes two. And this two is that, well, Brad Smith has officially thrown off the gauntlets and has now laser focused into as how I think ultimately Microsoft will destroy Sony. I mean, again, it's just pure speculation at this point. But Sony has been playing dirty for years. They've gotten away with industry murder, in my opinion. They have been the bully, easily the big bully of the room for over a decade. We've seen how they've treated people in the gaming industry, that when you go against Sony, you go against basically the Godfather, and ultimately you get blackballed, or you don't get codes, or you don't get coverage. And they can, in fact, do that and continue to do that because they're the market leader. And Microsoft looks to challenge that with, of course, the Activision Blizzard acquisition, which is officially being blocked by the FTC. But there is still hope, folks. And we won't have to wait too long to find out whether or not the EU and the UK are going to accept what I consider some of the most extreme concessions that I've ever seen in media as a whole. And let me paint the picture before I get into the introductions, just so you guys can gnaw on this for a second. Um, what Microsoft has ultimately done is not only offer Steam, which denied a contract because they're like, we trust Microsoft. Nintendo Switch is going to have whatever Nintendo Switch is going to be in the future, whether it's going to be a console that's quite similar to the Series S in power. It's going to have Call of Duty for the first time since the Wii U, where it had a commercial flop in a Call of Duty. I think it was Call of Duty 3 that was on there, if I'm not mistaken. It was a commercial flop. They offer Sony, their biggest rival, a 10-year signed in blood, literally contract that would have to be litigated if you broke it. And to make matters even more sweeter to this deal, to allow it to be in their own streaming service, PlayStation Plus. Now, why I say this is something that we've never seen before. Just imagine this for a second. Recently, of one of the last acquisitions from Disney was the Fox. They wanted all of the X-Men properties. That was the big draw to get control of all of these characters. Just imagine in your head, folks, how ridiculous this offer is. And it's even more ridiculous that the FTC would not even come back to the table with Microsoft to allow this, right? But think about if Disney buys Fox, they spend millions and millions, potentially $1 billion on this deal. And then they turn around and say, hey, guess what? We did the $1 billion investment, but we're going to put all X-Men content on Netflix. Does that sound ridiculous to you? It should, because that is what's happening here, though I completely understand why Microsoft is willing to do this extreme measure because you know something, they want to get this deal done. And yes, it is bigger than Call of Duty, but Brad Smith again had something to say today, which we're going to get into. It's going to be a great conversation, but let's welcome in the rest of the panel. Wandering Dutch, congratulations on episode 100 on the midweek mix-up podcast. You guys have a big charity stream, which we're going to get to towards the end of the show. How are you, man? Welcome back.
Yeah, I'm awesome. I'm awesome. Yeah, it was great to eventually hit that episode 100. And obviously a great way to end the year as well, getting to that big, nice big round number. So yeah, 100 episodes now. It was an awesome show, of course, with King David from Iron Lords, and welcoming back some older panel members as well who've had to step back for work and things like that and general life. So they managed to jump in and do a full podcast again. So it was a good throwback. So yeah, great episode. Thank you again for the congratulations. Thank you to Kay Sante so far for the early donation as well for the charity. Much appreciated. And yeah, really looking forward to the charity stream this weekend as well. Super.
Yeah, Mrs. Mrs. Boomstick and I will be running through your charity stream and dropping a couple of bucks into there because what you guys are doing is great. It's great for the community. It's great to see that that you guys are getting it done, and of course we want to be a part of that. Shout out to DDS219. What's going on? Very good friend of me and Mrs. Boom for years. How you doing, brother? Hopefully you're feeling okay. Kay Asante, welcome back, brother. We've been talking pretty much all day. We have a lot to get into today. Brad Smith dropping down the gauntlets. What are your thoughts?
Indeed. No, it's good to be back. It's fun, more conversation. I myself and everyone and yourself have been going through a lot of these conversations, and I want Microsoft to turn the page, but they seem to just love being where they are with it. And clearly, like as we will get into, it seems like they really have a good strategy in place. So I'm here to talk about it, but I'm excited to see that the chat is already so lively. Everybody's already here.
Yeah,
I'm excited to get into it. And I see the mag is returned.
Yes,
and
yes.
He's here, so it's going to be a good night. We're almost at full strength right now. Come on now,
yes.
This is great. This is good.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get into the what Brad Smith had to say, and of course, get the opinion of everybody on the panel. Crispy Bomb, what's going on, brother? You were so moved by this. You joined us on Monday's lunch break special, brother. Thanks so much for joining us there. But you're back again. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling great. What is up, chat? And yeah, we got a lot to get into. And as I want to start off by saying, hopefully logic prevails.
Yeah, hopefully, indeed. Hopefully, logic does in fact prevail. It's you would, like I said, you would at least hope that the logic and I think ultimately where I had concerns with the EU and the CMA, I think that they are going to do something that the FTC has failed to do, and that is use actual evidence in their decision, and they won't be politically motivated like Lina Khan. Lina Khan obviously has aspirations of potentially, having a bigger political career than she has now, and she's going to stake her claim in going up against big tech. We saw that post that came out on Tuesday where she basically said to the big tech world, no matter what you're trying to buy, we're going to sue. And I've talked to a lot of people behind the scenes. This is what I would call very, very simply an abuse of power. She is in a position where she can make these big decisions. The FTC right now is in a huge lawsuit that the Supreme Court is going to rule on regarding what they're doing to Microsoft. They did to another company. And I believe it's Axon is the name of the company. Basically, what they're suing is that they're claiming that having to go through the lower courts to then have to appeal to the lower court judge, to then eventually appeal to get to the federal judge takes 2 to 3 years, and it's unconstitutional. It does not quantify what is considered due process in this country. And I absolutely agree with the fact that this is what I would consider, in my opinion, as a tax-paying United States citizen, an abuse of power. I don't. I think that they give her too much power. I think the FTC is a rotting mess right now, and you can tell that they're doing things the way they want to do it, but not using law as you would expect. I mean, a perfect example of what I'm talking about is there's supposed to be 5 bodies, 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans, and 1 Republican quit. And guess what, folks? That Republican has not been replaced. And from what we understand, they're in no rush to replace this person on the panel that makes these decisions. Does anyone else find that to be odd? Because I certainly do. But we will get into it. The Mag, what's going on, brother? How are you feeling? Welcome back. Your computer nearly gave you, a mulligan, if you will, but you're back.
Yes. Do I sound okay now that I rebooted back in?
You sound like Pony 420.
Well,
we're happy to have you.
Well, that's perfect because you know what? That's exactly what you're getting tonight. But anyways, in all seriousness, guys, let's welcome Hargi Chani to the panel. Okay, so now, welcome to hell, buddy. It's gonna be a wild ride. But anyways, in all seriousness, it's gonna be a lot of fun. You know what? This panel's been great. Most of us have been here. Man, we've been here for almost 2 years now. Some of us, right? So it's been great, and we keep going and we keep doing our thing. Next thing, Kay Asante, welcome back as well. You were off for a while. I was starting to get nervous. I'm like, where the hell is this guy? He wasn't even in the private chat. I didn't realize that, the things took a nasty turn.
It had me down for a moment, but I'm good. I'm back.
Trust me, that thing, man, even if you're healthy and everything else, that thing can crush your soul. But anyhow, enough of that. Also, one last thing I wanted to talk about very quickly before we actually get into this is Wandering Dutch doing the Lord's work, okay? When he's doing these charity streams. I was part of it last year. And remember, guys, when it comes to charity streams, here's the thing. It's not about what you get out of it. It's what you're giving, right? And so like last year I donated, and let me show you what I got. And it wasn't even something I was looking for. And I want this. But I see this sea blue controller I got here. I got this on his charity stream last year. I won it in a competition when I donated money for the children's charity, right? So, but you know what? Again, I didn't do it for prizes, but it's just a nice bonus to find out that that's something you can get by watching on doing some of these being part of these charity streams and donating for an excellent cause. Because if there's one thing in this world that I would absolutely give every penny I possibly could to, it's for the welfare of children. So please go to Wandering Dutch's charity stream. Check it out. He's going to be doing this weekend as well. And of course, I'm going to be passing by as well with my wife. So we're going to check that out. Anyways, guys, we got a heck of a lot to talk about. Once again, let's get right into this show.
Yeah, you know what? Let me bring up exactly what we're going to open up today's podcast with. Brad Smith out there making the rounds, folks. No surprise, he has been one of the biggest proponents for this deal. I think he has provided enough evidence and documentation to suggest that this, in fact, is not a deal that is going to hurt the market, more specifically, hurt PlayStation, which is the biggest thing. We're going to get into why I think, and again, this does not come from me. We'll wait for Everborn Saga to get back. He had come up with an ideology that when you put these two particular things together of what Brad Smith had to say, it certainly seems that Microsoft has pissed off the sleeping giant. And I think that not only is Sony currently a detriment to Microsoft's plans to compete, but they have now opened the door for everyone in the United States government, or maybe governments around the world, to look into gaming in a way that they've never looked before. And I think that if Sony is interested in potentially acquiring more studios, they have now put the spotlight on themselves. They literally have shot themselves in the foot. But let's get into today's commentary from Brad Smith, president of Microsoft. And he says this, folks: if you look at the global market, Sony has 70% of that market, and we have only 30%. So the first thing a judge is going to have to decide is whether the FTC lawsuit is a case that will promote competition, or is it really instead of the case that will protect the largest competitor from competition. But he continues. Smith added, the PlayStation currently has 286 exclusive games, while Xbox currently only has 59. Now, this is something as that any Xbox fan, including this one right here, can attest to, that we have been fighting the good fight with Microsoft to do better on. As great as Game Pass has been in 2022, with 60 games that have been added, one of which is on your screen right now. Go out and play this game if you like weird, if you like Insomniac type of weapons, if you like really raunchy humor that's going to happen. You're going to have to wear headphones if you're playing around the kids. This game is for you. But we're talking about Game Pass in 2023, which I'm going to be sitting down tomorrow with Miles Dompierre. And we're going to be breaking down what 2023 looks like and get his take on the air that was taken out of the room on the Game Awards when Microsoft didn't show anything. That's right. Miles was there, folks. He was in attendance, and we're going to get his hot take opinion on what the gamers were saying, that when Microsoft did not show up with anything. But Brad Smith continues and says this. So the administrative law judge is going to have to decide whether going from 59 to 60 is such a danger to competition that he should move to stop this from going forward. And the one extra that he's talking about is the Call of Duty IP. Now, granted, it's a big one. There's no doubt about it. But when you look at the game exclusives that are coming, just next year alone for Sony, I have the list. I'm going to read you verbatim once I get into it. They have a rock solid year coming up, not only next year, the year after, with exclusive content that they have locked up, folks, that are only on a PlayStation 5. And it makes you wonder, when I read these titles to you, how many there are. It does seem like there is a fugazi going on in protecting Sony. It's shocking to me that they could do pretty much whatever they want unchallenged. I mean, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again for context. The Bungie deal that was $3.6 billion went through as quickly as I tie both of my shoes. Does anyone find that odd? I certainly do. But Wandering Dutch, let's get to you first on this, brother. These are the comments that come the way of Brad Smith. What is your opinion on it? Is he wrong in any of these aspects?
No, I don't. He's definitely not wrong. I don't think. I think it's more just they're kind of baffled at the approach of the FTC. But I think ultimately we know, and kind of quite a few others know now anyway, that the FTC remit is that they don't care about concessions. They're just going to take it straight to court, which is, I think Microsoft expected them to be better, as we ask everybody to be better. In the voice of Kratos as well, you can say that, and it would still make sense. Don't be sorry, be better. But the FTC essentially do need to be better. But Lina Khan ultimately isn't doing, should we say, her job correctly. We know that and this isn't just the Microsoft case. This is previous cases she's tried to take and try to block recently. Previous 6 that have been granted when she's tried to get them blocked, because they haven't produced actual statistical facts when they've been trying to make these arguments in either administrative court or through what would be classed as high court, really. No actual physical arguments, just guesstimates. Nothing, no proofs to back up the accusations, essentially. Just all guesswork. And of course, at the end of the day, what we've been saying for quite some time is, when the facts are out and the facts are laid out, which is what Microsoft will produce, is the actual statistical facts, then there is no argument. There is really no argument to be had. I mentioned this in the private chat to you guys as well, before this show was kind of nailed on for the topics, and when you posted that in there. Microsoft really have kind of got everything nailed on for Sony, where they can't say no. Do you want, essentially, when they're talking about the cloud issue and cloud servers and all that, they've essentially already got a contract with Sony for Azure servers. So that marks off that. You've restrictive for the cloud, etc. Well, you've got access to the cloud servers, so you can mark that off your complaints list. You've actually already got a contract with us for that. Call of Duty, we've offered you 10 years of Call of Duty, minimum 10 years of Call of Duty. Of course, that can be extended in the future.
Yeah.
Not only that, but we've also offered to put it on PS Plus, which in previous episodes of Prime Time, months ago, I mentioned, listen, it's not out of the realms of possibility that if Microsoft just want to shut them up, they can say, right, well, if you've got an issue with being on Game Pass, then have it on PlayStation Plus. And rumors has it that part of this 10-year agreement is that it also goes on to PS Plus. Now, if that's the case, that's Microsoft saying, listen, we do not care about the sales money. Like, we'll put it on PS Plus. It guarantees your players get it at no additional cost. It goes on to PS Plus. Free to everybody who wants it. It just has a subscription. It means you get subscriptions because you get PS Plus subscribers. We get subscriptions because we got Game Pass subscribers.
Right.
And we also win because we get the microtransactions from both. So no one loses out here. You're still getting your revenue. We're still getting our revenue, and everyone gets the game. If Nintendo had a subscription service, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind they'd probably go out and say, listen, if you want to put Call of Duty on that subscription service, feel free. Steam came out and with them, and they said essentially, listen, they offered us 10 years. Of course, we took it, but they didn't have to because we trust what they say. Because everything we've asked them to do and everything they've said they're going to do, they do. So we've got no issues with them. So thanks, Microsoft, but you didn't have to. Like, we'll still take it. But no, it's the documents that come out. Brad Smith's absolutely correct. Like, we know the exclusivity agreements. We know the amount of exclusives Sony have. It's been their remit since day dot. They nailed down IPs. They nailed down exclusivity agreements for everything as a stopgap in between when they're releasing content. So you get the Fugazi, the imaginary kind of sort of veil in front of you that Sony continue to release exclusives continuously, even when they have dry spells. And this is what we're kind of speaking about. So when we've mentioned Sony having a strong year this year, we're also talking about second-party IP and third-party exclusive IP. And next year, what props up the year for Sony is outside of Spider-Man 2, which looks like it's going to release now. Obviously, it's up there on the marketplace, ready for pre-order soon. It looks like it's going to hit, which is great news for everybody. Of course, it's a tremendous game. Outside of that, though, the only games nailed on for next year are second and third-party exclusive IPs that have been tied down to exclusivity, and that's Forspoken, which has been tumultuous.
Yeah,
and
it's
Final
not getting
Fantasy
the
16.
greatest. Yeah, a lot of people walked away with that very disappointed.
And Final Fantasy 16. So aside from those, Sony again propping up, but it's a facade. So when you look at Sony from the outside, you think, well, look at that. They've already got 3 big games coming next year. With Final Fantasy's huge, but it's not their IP. Forspoken's huge, but that's not theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then they've got Spider-Man. When you look at Xbox for next year, they have they've got second-party IPs that are timed exclusive, but they will be going to Sony within 6 months, no doubt.
Yeah.
If not a year, depending on how quick the developers are. The likes of Stalker, the likes of Atomic Heart are going over to PlayStation. I think on day one, it's just a Game Pass kind of deal there. So there's the vast majority of the exclusivity agreements Xbox have are just timed, and very short, limited window timed, like 6 months or less. We've seen some this year that have been 3 months long. It's just mainly a case of, right, okay, well, you get it out on ours first, brilliant. It's a launch exclusive, and then that's it. Then it can go everywhere else. Sony's exclusivity agreements are usually timed for such a length of time, but by the time you actually get your hands on them, it's been out for 3 years, 2 years, a year and a half. You've forgotten about it. You've moved on to the next thing, or you've already got the PlayStation version, so you haven't even bothered about it. So it's worth 0 to any other platform by that point. So yeah, it's a case of Microsoft obviously have exclusives, as he's detailed. They have 59, and Sony 200 plus, which is a significant amount. but this is what makes up the annual kind of statements when you look at it.
Just based on numbers, Dutch, it's 5-1.
Yeah, it's mad, but it's something that we know. We just didn't know the specific numbers of it, and of course he's detailed them there, which is great. And of course, if we look into it, it's, to be honest, it's probably a little bit higher for Xbox and maybe it's a little bit higher for PlayStation if you include all the little indie IPs as well. But yeah, it's wild. And to be honest, I don't think Microsoft are bothered in the slightest. They did say this weeks ago, even before the FTC blocked it or attempted to block or go to administrative court. And by the way, of course, for those who kind of haven't looked into the finer details, administrative court means that the deal can be closed regardless of whatever this is. This isn't actually going for a full block. This is just going to essentially put a kind of a temporary blocking order on it, which won't even get that far. So yeah, I think it's just wild. It's just the FTC's remit right now of block first, ask questions later. And it's failed for them so far, and it's not going to just miraculously work for them this time around, because the same problem they've had with other cases is what they've had with this one, and that is zero evidence to back up their reasoning.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely, and I agree. And I have a story in front of me. I want to go next to Hargeet on this. Hargeet, the story I pulled was from Axios.com, and they do some good work over there. The article was written by Margaret Harding McGill, and the title is FTC's New Stance: Litigate, Don't Negotiate, which again, I think that is abuse of power. I think that Lina Khan is instead of looking at these things from the finite details, which I don't know. I mean, I'm former law enforcement, and I was always taught that in order to prosecute a case, you actually need truth. You got to have evidence. I think Microsoft has provided enough of it. I think that she has not. This is what she had to say, and they have her quoted several times in this article. It says this, Hargeet: "That's not the work of the agency that we should have to do," said Khan. That's something that that is really should be fixed on the front end by parties being on clear notice about what are lawful and unlawful deals. And she added, "We're going to be focusing our resources on litigating rather than on settling." So, I mean, I understand this hard take, line in the sand. But when you look at this deal, you look at the fact that she's lost 6 major cases. And again, this all boils down to what happens in mid-January. If the CMA and the EU accept these unbelievable, unprecedented concessions for Call of Duty specifically, she is going to have to then decide whether or not she walks away and abandons this crusade, or lets it go in front of a federal judge. I mean, obviously, we heard what Brad Smith had to say, and he's right. He's 100% right. What are your thoughts on this newly focused FTC?
I mean, so I saw this a while ago, right? So I made this claim that she was going to sue in the summer.
Yeah.
When she went after Meta, when they're trying to buy Within, and up to that point, she did not have the third Democrat on the board. It was 2 against 2, and it would basically just stall. She didn't have the ability to move forward. She got the third, and the first thing they do is sue Meta. And I'm like, okay, so and it was totally baseless. I'm like, what are you even talking about? This is bogus, right? So given where she is, I expect this, right? Now, this is an interesting thing to do, right? Is it abuse of power? I don't know, because ultimately, thankfully, we do have judicial overview of this, right? So it's not like it's totally done. She can just make the decision. Ultimately, she has to sue somebody in a court, and the court has to decide. And up to now, the court has still maintained, an unbiased view and said, well, if you haven't actually proven anything here, I'm going to allow the deal to go through, right? So up to now, that's been okay, but it's annoying to the people that are trying to do these acquisitions, right? You have to go through court, which adds cost. It
Right.
adds time. It's unnecessary when you're going to lose. The oddity with this is, in general, most of these regulatory bodies have been pretty good. They generally tend to go after things they think really are going to be a problem. So they have a pretty good record. They generally don't have failures. Lina Khan has a very, 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 very terrible record, and that's it's making the FTC into a joke. That should not be the case. Usually, the world would look at the FTC and say, "What did they say?" Now you can't do that, right? Because it's not doing what it's supposed to do, which is analyze the market for what it is and then make a determination that yes or no, this doesn't happen. Here are the consents we need. Okay, you can move forward, right? And now the FTC has become a joke. So like that's just not good, right? Now, will this continue? I don't know. Not to go into politics, but we do have the House changing over, and the House then has oversight to say, why are you spending this money? What are you accomplishing by doing this, right? So they have the potential to do that. They may not, right? But there is the potential to say, what's going on here, right?
Well, it is taxpayer money that is being spent.
Right. And Congress
wasted.
owns it, right? Congress says, well, they own the purse, and they're like, well, what are you doing with this? Why are you doing this? You're wasting not only our time, you're wasting other people's time, you're wasting money. What's going on? What is the accomplishment here? What are you getting out of this, right? So if the record was like, 4-6, okay, fine. At least you got something done. Fine. That makes sense, right? But if it's 0-6, right, and it's about to become 0-7, 0-8, 0-9, like, what's the point? Why are you doing this, right? So that is a potential that might happen. The other cool thing, of course, is this whole court case that I think you brought up. Like there's a Supreme Court case where somebody said, hey, this is ridiculous. I should be able to sue if they're going to take years to do this. And if that happens, it brings another avenue, right? So right now we go to administrative judge. They could say, no, I want to go directly to a federal court and have an impartial judge go over what we have as a case. So as far as what Lina Khan is doing, I mean, okay, I get that there's activism. There's this whole branch of government called the legislative branch. You go there and make laws. You don't do them this way. The whole point is to figure out what we should make. That's why we have 535 people that make the laws, right? The reason is you have to go through enough rigor to make sure when you're doing something it makes sense for the country, right? And so that's why you do that. So I don't know why we need to do this weird thing that they're doing, but they're doing it, right? And so it's tarring, I think, the FTC, and I don't like that, but it is what it is, right? I don't see this case actually being a win for FTC. It's just there's too many things going against them. And most of the people who analyze it in the media have said the same thing. And I'm not talking about games media, right? This is like the Wall Street media. They're like, why would this not be okay? To put it in perspective, I think you brought up the Disney Fox deal. That was like a $50+ billion acquisition, right? And
it was big. It's probably one of the biggest up until now with this one.
Yeah, exactly. And it went through, right? But and that one had a very interesting thing where you have an existing law that says the networks can't own themselves. ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox cannot own themselves, right? So nobody could acquire another one. They just did. So to do that, they had to actually spin off the network part of it, so that they could actually buy the IPs and all that of the rest of Fox. But yeah, so I mean that went through. They went ahead and figured it out. Usually you go through the consent decrees. Lina's answer is I don't do the consent decrees, which this is just not normal. And so we'll see how this goes.
Again, look, I know we're sitting here, we're laughing, we're trying, we have puzzle, we have the Metal Gear Solid question mark over our heads. You know what I'm saying? When you just take a step back and you overlook everything that's happening, it seems like we're in bizarro world.
It does. And now, even better is Lina Khan now says that Nintendo is not part of this equation. And as Brad Smith said, 70-30, U.S. courts have said 60% plus is a monopoly.
Correct.
So she has declared that PlayStation is a monopoly, yet has nothing to help us consumers against that monopoly. In
Right.
fact, the company that's trying to compete against that, to take away any market share, she's saying, no, you don't, you can't do that. Okay,
Right.
well, wait a second. Is it your job to protect us?
Right.
So if you're saying the monopoly should be protected, well, when are we getting protected?
Yeah.
Right. On top of that, there's this subscription problem. It's like, okay, your entire thing has nothing about Apple Arcade, which is the biggest gaming subscription by
Right.
far. It's over
Thi-
100 million subscribers. Like,
Correct.
so why aren't we looking at that, right? So Microsoft has not been able to do the same thing Apple has in a very short time. What has it been, 2-3 years? Apple Arcade has way overtaken Game Pass.
Yes.
Like, okay, so is that not part of the equation? Nope, because it doesn't matter to Sony.
Hargeet, I don't think I don't even think you have to go as far as Apple Arcade, right? Because PlayStation Plus and Nintendo's subscription services both have more. That's 25 million to 35 million for Nintendo and 46 million for PlayStation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But at any rate, you can say that there's a plenty of subscription competition, right? You can't say Microsoft is like the market leader in subscriptions. Okay, how? Right? You've got like an $8 billion revenue for Apple in their subscription service, and you're telling me that Microsoft's the one winning? Like, how? Like, it's just not true, right? It would be something if they even mention it. They don't, right? They don't mention it. And to your point,
You know
right,
what's funny? They don't even mention the fact that there was a 10-year deal, PlayStation Plus.
with Nintendo.
Yeah.
With PlayStation, like, well, the deal with PlayStation hasn't happened because PlayStation doesn't want to come to the table, right? But competition wise, Nintendo is a competitor, is it not? And if you have a deal with them, you've taken care of competition, have you not? So I don't know. This whole thing is pretty nuts.
But Nintendo doesn't count, Hargeet. They are now
According
another
to who?
monopoly.
PlayStation.
Yeah.
But this is what I'm saying.
FTC.
Like, if we're saying that Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft don't compete with Nintendo, then we are by default saying that Nintendo is a monopoly in the child-friendly console.
True
market.
as well.
Yeah.
That's
Right?
true as well.
So in order
Right.
to prove this argument, you have to say that Sony has 70% of the market, which is legally a monopoly, and we do not have a problem with them using their market power to raise prices, box out the competition, do back-end deals for suppliers to say that you have to come through this and you have to pay us a percentage based on it. So they're basically, if they're a monopoly, right? Because
Yep.
we're saying we can't compete this way. They are using their monopoly powers to abuse the industry. If this is the definition, right? Because what's clear here is that, at least by what they're saying, is those are not valid ways to compete. Now, if you're asking Everborn, they're not a monopoly because you have Steam, you have mobile, you have Microsoft and Nintendo. Sony's not a monopoly, and so when they do the things that are just industry standard that they do, it's fine because they're competing. But now we're saying we want to tie Microsoft's hands behind their back, and I think really this is all coming from, we're looking at Microsoft as Microsoft and not
Xbox
specifically to the industry, right? And
Yep.
whether we want to do that or not, because the thing is, I don't want to get into a thing, and I don't think any of us have done that here. But when we talk about this thing, I want to keep it focused on like the FTC and not make it personal towards Lina Khan specifically, only because this is what the Democrats want right now, right? Joe Biden put Lina Khan in office because, he knew what she was going to do. So I think we just kind of have to look at this, I know we're all fans here, but we got to try to look at it like objectively as opposed to making it personal. And that's, again, not for anybody on the panel, but I see a lot of stuff on Twitter, and there was some stuff in our chat. So I'm just giving that disclaimer. Now that is out of the way.
Yep.
So the thing about this is we have to remember, right? We have to see the world as it is, not as it should be or as we want it to be, right? So Lina Khan via the FTC, or the FTC, I should say, they don't have to have a winning case, right? Right? If the goal is to stop this deal, then you just have to gum up the works enough to make it uncomfortable for everybody involved. And we can say that no, there's no way, after we hit that June deadline, that Activision just takes their $3 billion and goes home. But I mean, if you're paying attention to this, and I was just saying this to Kay Asante before I got on here, Wall Street is now recommending Activision as a buy, whether the deal goes through or not. Why? Because they're focusing on fundamentals again, right? They are delivering on their core competencies, right? This is the biggest, huge launch for Overwatch, right? Biggest launch for COD. People are finally excited again about World of Warcraft. Whether it's predatory microtransactions or not, Diablo Mobile or Immortal is just printing money. Candy Crush has been printing money. And so Activision will be fine with or without this deal. Now, the workers at Activision are another story, but apparently nobody cares about that.
That's the problem, right?
Right?
Because the assumption is that Activision employees won't leave en masse. That was where they were, right?
Yes,
because
that
of all
is correct.
The issues.
There was going to be a mass exodus until
Yeah.
Microsoft stepped in. That is a fact. Yes.
Yeah, it being Microsoft employees over Activision employees was the benefit that they're like, okay, we will play that out, and if that's if we become Microsoft employees, we'll stay, right? So that is a big deal, and and the CWA was behind this for a reason. So
yeah, but again, I mean, there's a lot of layers to this, right? Because the question is, everybody at the FTC serves at the president's pleasure, or at least the council members or whatever, right? Or commission, the people who vote. And there is the idea, you talked about how there was a 2-2 tie, and then they got their third Democrat approved. But then one of the Republicans left, right? Because they said there's not conversations happening here. That was their exit statement, right? They're not interested in actually reviewing each case on the merits. It's more about, we need to put big tech on notice, right? So right now there's only one Republican in the commission and 3 Democrats. But the way the law works, you can only have 3 from one party. So they're actually missing a seat, right? They're supposed to have a Republican seat there. The other side of this is, do the Activision board members, if this thing plays out until June, do they get cold feet, right? Do they just say, we want to go it alone? They're not gamers. They don't care about this.
Yeah, but the original vote was 98 to 2.
Yeah, but
you know what I'm saying? So they want to sell. It's highly unlikely that some turbulent war. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, all of this conversation that we're having right now is completely meaningless if the CMA and the EU move against this deal. Then the deal is basically dead, and then Microsoft is going to be having to pay $3 billion or two right now. If they wait till June, it's $3 billion that they have to pay Activision Blizzard. So everything is. I mean, we don't have long to wait, folks. The mid-January, which by my math, and I'm no mathematician by any stretch of the truth, would be the 15th or the 16th if you consider that January has 31 days. So if it's mid-January and the CMA come out and say, no, we are going to approve this, but we are accepting all of Microsoft's concessions into law. They're signing the document. The EU comes out and says, yes, we're also then Lina Khan's in big trouble. And at that point, she's going to have to make the decision on whether or not this is going to either be abandoned, which would look like egg on the face, which she's going to have regardless, or she is going to put an injunction, which gets us in front of a federal judge, which I believe will laugh this out of court. Like, I don't even think they get one day into court. They're going to look at this and say, this is unconstitutional. You have no case here. Have a nice day, Lina. There's loss number 7.
Maybe that happens, but there's also the idea that she doesn't put it in front of a federal judge, right? Maybe for the reason you're talking about.
Well, she's doing that right now, but she will have to if they approve it on the CMA and the EU.
She won't have to do anything. Why? Because the case is still there. Now, as I understand it, there may be some language in the merger agreement between Activision and Microsoft that they need the US's approval, right? I don't know if that's true.
That is true. That is absolutely true.
So that means Microsoft,
it's contingent on the big 3.
Right. So Microsoft cannot close until the FTC approves the deal. Right. Now, again, there's wiggle room there. I will leave that to the whole laws of the world to explain whether they actually can or they can't. Right. Because, technically it's not blocked. Right. They're just going to an administrative law judge or whatever. So I don't know. Right. But again, even if they do close over this pending litigation, the litigation still has to happen. Right. So are they going to want to close and expend that level of assets and resources only to have it be in limbo for the 2 years that it could take to go through this whole process? Right.
I mean, listen, at this point, look, at the end of the day, we don't know. And the reason why I pulled the gameplay, folks, is because I've been hearing a lot of chatter in the chat. Everybody wants to see our beautiful faces. So here you go. We have a lot of people on the panel. Gameplay could wait. You guys want to see us. You want to see us up close. Thanks to Web Day for the incredible graphics that you see. What's the holiday? You see my tree behind me. Listen, it's Christmas. Let's have some fun. But look, I want to bring in Kay Asante into the conversation. Kay Asante, you and I have been talking. Obviously, we're going to get into some tinfoil hatness, if you will, in the back end of the show, because Everborn Saga seems to think that there is... the Man of Steel known as Brad Smith with the glowing eyes on my thumbnail. It has some heft to what he's saying when you put one and one together. But ultimately, I want to talk about what Lina Khan had to say. I want to talk about what Brad Smith had to say just recently about the 70% versus 30. Clearly, Sony has worldwide an unbelievable arm when it comes to gaming. Some people would call it a monopoly by pure definition of anything over 60%. It is, in fact, a monopoly. What are your thoughts on everything so far?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think that's a little, and of course, I know obviously why Brad Smith is saying what he's saying. He's using the FTC's own language to make a point. But let's be honest here, it's not 70% because Nintendo looms large. Let's just be honest. That 70% removes Nintendo from the equation completely and says, "Oh, it's between Xbox and PlayStation."
But that's FTC's words, right?
Exactly.
I was going to bite back on that too.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, because
the FTC is basically determining it, is cutting that pie that way. But they're wrong. Let's just be clear on that.
Yeah,
they are wrong. And then they go high performance console, which is a non-existent category because
it's a made-up market. That's exactly what the administrative law judges will look at, right?
Exactly. It's a made-up market, and you can even determine that by finding that even old last-gen consoles are now still playing new-gen games using cloud, which Nintendo does as well. So, ultimately, what it's doing, and this is doing it to a lesser extent than the other conversations that we're going to have, but basically what it's doing is it's showing that the FTC and to Everborn's point, and and that same point has been made by many people on this panel currently, they're putting ideology before the merit of the case, right? That's what they're doing. Now, let's play devil's advocate here. Let's be a little fair here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why the narrative of big tech bad is pervasive across the land, right? And it's not only in the US where that narrative.
Asante?
Please.
It's because big tech bad.
right? And it's not only here that narrative is pervasive. Believe it or not, in the UK/EU, big tech bad is a pervasive narrative as well, right?
Mhm.
The difference there, though, is whenever these cases are coming out and they're big and they're bombastic and people are reading into it, especially when big people, when eyeballs are looking into it, that is when you must use the law and the merits of the case even more. But unfortunately, because of the law, because of the way our government works, the way our narratives are working here in the US, what's happening is they start at the narrative and then they work backwards to fill in the gaps, to prove to you that what they said is true, which that's, usually you don't arrest you don't arrest the murderer and then try and prove it, right? You prove it first before you go. But that's where we are now. What I think is happening here, and we'll get into the further.
Tell that to the Central Park 5, but sure.
And what happened? What happened? Right? It took a while, but now you know them at the Central Park 5 because that never stands. Right. It never stands.
We'll just wait 20 years for Microsoft to get their Netflix special.
But you and to wait for them to get the Netflix special. Anyway, honestly, what I think is happening here ultimately is, you would think that all the regulatory bodies being aligned by and large would spell like danger for big tech, but the way America's FTC is moving is kind of, unfortunately for them and fortunately for Microsoft, forcing them to kind of be behind Microsoft here because, hey, big tech bad is the narrative, but we must all go where the facts lead rather than filling in the gaps because big tech bad, right? And unfortunately, of all the various regulatory bodies, it seems our regulatory body is starting from big tech bad and filling in the gaps, while the others are actually going where the facts lead them, right? So we'll get further into it, but clearly that's what has emboldened Brad Smith here, right? That's what's emboldened them, because ultimately, if the ones that you can't argue with use merit to judge that case, they're still golden, right? And then if you want to come back and fight with the clown show that's the FTC, let's go for it, right? But it's about the ones whose determination can't be questioned. Those are the ones that really matter. Now, if they started the whole entire research with big tech bad, then we're screwed, right? Then it's a wrap. But it seems that they're not fighting that way. They're coming out and really paying a focus to what's going on.
Well, they're asking the peers, they're asking the other publishers and developers whether or not what you think. Now, again, we saw the document that released on Monday that was from an unannounced person. A lot of people thought it was Epic Games. Tim Sweeney came out and said, no, that was not us. We have not.
That was under my tweet, by the way.
Yes, that was your tweet.
That was under Mr. Everborn Saga's tweet. See, you too, if you are a conspiracy theorist long enough, can get a Tim Sweeney reply. So
there you go. And it turns out that we don't know who it is. And in the coming days, in the coming weeks, we're going to see more of these documents make the rounds. More of these documents are going to come around, and again, we don't know in what secession that they're going to be, whether it's going to be 1 today, 2 tomorrow, 3 next week. We have no idea. But I think that if the consensus is that Microsoft's peers, meaning like 2K and Steam and EA and Nintendo and everyone but Sony have these things to say where it's hey, listen, the deal is going to get done and it's not going to hurt competition in any way. I kind of wonder if this is, this first document, and again, this is me just spitballing here, folks, is an outlier to what the EU and the CMA are going to say about this deal, because ultimately, with these incredible concessions that we learned about this week, where PlayStation Plus, Microsoft's 1,000% rival to
So
Xbox Game
can I
Pass.
speak to that for a little bit?
Please,
Boom,
jump in.
That whole thing, and as we do, myself and Mr. Everborn Saga go back and forth on this on the show on a weekly basis, and those who watch know exactly where I'm going here. But honestly, I like that whole thing is the biggest chess move. Like, I find it absolutely hilarious. That whole, hey, we'll give you 3 years. No, make it 5 years. Heck, we'll give you 10 years. You know what? You can even put it on PlayStation Plus. Because and I'm sure you're going to get into it, but when you add the context of the background on that, it is absolutely hilarious. Like, there's no way on God's green earth that Microsoft would ever be okay with accepting any of those. PlayStation, I should say, would ever be okay with accepting any of those deals, because on the face of it, it sounds great, but it ruins their own arguments. It may cost them too much, and
well, they're going to have to pay for it.
Exactly. It's not a freebie, right? Yeah, and how much money did Call of Duty just recently make? How
10
much
days, $1 billion.
Your wallet right now?
10 days, $1 billion.
Exactly. So are you willing to open your wallet, PlayStation, and fork over that potential
it would
potential
be
funds to have it on PlayStation?
You know what's
Plus?
interesting to your point? You know where the most money was made of that $1 billion in 10 days?
On PlayStation.
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is the thing about that offer, which I think is like you call it a chess move. I call it like I think it's more like a bluff, right? Like, we dare you to take it. Because
continue. But I think it's, back in the day when you were a kid and you'd put $1 in the little suit in the bag, but then inside of it you fill it with like dog crap. That is literally what that deal.
It's a poison pill, is what you're.
It is a poison pill.
And I don't know who did that as a kid, but
many people did that as kids. Come on now.
I don't know what kids you were hanging out with, KSI. No,
bad kids, bad kids. I'm sorry.
No, but it is sort of this poison pill. See, the idea of the offer is, we know Sony cannot accept any offer we give them, right? Because they've dug their heels in, right? And if they accept that, then they're again tacitly accepting the whole thing, and now regulators don't have someone that they can prove harm, right? Because the regulators have to prove harm, and they have a market participant telling them that they are causing harm. And a lot of people think Sony is playing this super smart here. Really, it's almost like they're a useful idiot, right? And regulators seem like they're defending Sony, but they're not. It is just that they need to
they're benefiting from that big tech bad
right, but they need to investigate this deal, and they need someone to come forward to say something. And basically Sony was there to tell them what they needed so that they can, investigate the deal more, or in Lina Khan's case, move to try to block the deal. So it's not necessarily that they're defending Sony. It's just they needed someone, and Sony was the only one that complained, right? So there's that thing. Now, the thing with Sony, if Sony believed spending a lot of money to put high-profile content into their service was viable for them financially, they would have done it with God of War and Spider-Man. There's no way they're going to do it with an IP that they don't own. And Microsoft knows that, right? And so, again, this is before we even get, and for Sony, they would only have to cover their production costs. Now you have to make Microsoft whole for all the money they would lose on PlayStation, and that is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So
we all know how much that is, because we just heard how much they made recently.
Right. Does Sony, who doesn't believe in spending money to put things in their service, like that kind of money anyway, do they accept that deal? And that answer is no. However, when you get in front of the judge or other regulators, you are now exposing them for using this to their benefit, right? Because
none of that context
you said that subscriptions were a problem. We're offering it to you in a subscription. You said it was a problem you having it. We're offering it to you for 10 years. You won't take this deal because you believe that it's easier to you want to use the regulators as your bargaining chip, right? It's easier to talk to them. Hey, regulator, is that what you are? Are you a lapdog to this company here? And the regulators don't like that. So because they knew Sony wouldn't take it, you offer it anyway. And if they do take it, great. You got $1 billion every year from Sony. And then 70% of all the microtransactions, right? So for Microsoft, it seems like a weak move, but really it's a chess move. And just as they probably suspected, Sony wouldn't take it because it doesn't matter. They could say, we'll give you timed exclusivity on COD, and Sony wouldn't take it.
Yeah, that bit of news was put out not for Sony to take, but for everyone to look very badly at Sony, and it works very well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the canary in the coal mine for sure.
Yep. What is
again,
big tech? That's another big question. What is big tech? Is Sony not big tech?
Sony is considered big
when
tech.
When we say big tech, you got to be $500 billion or more before we start calling you.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Twitter is not big tech.
Talk about big tech, right? When you say what is big
Twitter is
tech?
not big
Well, that could be argued. Sorry,
Look
go
at
ahead.
what Boom
Exactly,
said.
Mag. It could be argued.
Look at
No,
what
because
Boom said
Twitter
about
isn't
why
making acquisitions. That's why we're not calling
Yeah,
it
that's true. That's true.
Twitter
Yeah.
big tech.
Look at what Boom said about why is it that what do you call it? Bungie was bought and nobody said anything. It's because they're not big tech. They get to hide because remember what happened during that week or 2 weeks or whatever when that happened. What are you going? Take-Two bought Zynga for $14 billion or so dollars.
We have to
Think about the
add some
Chinese.
context. We have to add some context there, and a lot of people don't realize this. Lina Khan got her job. She stepped into that role after Microsoft made this announcement
Recently.
and
yes.
when she stepped into that role, it was 2-2 with 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, but a 2-2 vote means that the acquisition or any acquisition can go through. It's basically a loss if it's a tie, right? So
they didn't have the guns in place to be able to fight it.
So when Sony was in front of them, they couldn't do it, and the same thing with Zynga. But now she has the sort of ammunition to actually have but
the FTC isn't the only body that had to look at that, right? It was the same CMA, the same EC. They all had to approve it.
But again, at that time though, you had this $4 billion acquisition and the $16 billion from Zynga, which at the time, which of course, here we are because of Microsoft, they're always good at like stepping on messaging, aren't they? Like they should have let the Zynga thing play out because that would have been like, oh my God, $14 billion or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, timing is timing. Right?
And then what did they do?
Indeed.
They went, hold my beer, and then
and
went 70 billion, which then
Microsoft
overshadowed everything.
Microsoft is historically shitty with timing. Now, here's the thing.
Absolutely.
Tell me I'm wrong. Go back and look.
No, you are. Unfortunately, you are correct in saying so. I bring to evidence my wife's Zune, which is still working and one of the best things.
We can talk about the Xbox One.
Zune,
Everything they tried to introduce with the Xbox One is coming into fruition now.
Yep.
But anyway, but the thing to think about here is we can say the other regulators around the world let Sony buy Bungie, and even though they were the market leader and all of that. But the other regulators around the world might very well approve this deal. So,
yes,
right? So the issue still comes back to there's a different regime in the FTC, and they may still get thrown down in court. If you're a fan of this deal, I would not worry about the FTC. I would worry about the CMA, like you were saying, Boom.
Yes.
And if they can secure that, if they can secure concessions with the EU, then you come back and you go to Activision and say, listen, we got everybody else. Let's amend this contract and close this deal. But that would require another shareholder vote, and whether they had the stomach, the Activision shareholders, to take this sale and close over. And will the
I
Microsoft
believe that they
shareholders?
would simply
They would,
because
100%.
because they got the EU and the CMA to approve it, and now they have to go against what has become the laughing joke of this country, the FTC.
Well,
Uh,
I think
sorry.
I do think the Activision shareholders go for it. I mean, yeah, because then they get paid and they're done and they're out.
Yep.
Right?
And they're out. Yeah, they're gone. Yeah,
It's
they're all buying
Microsoft.
islands across the world. Yes.
Right. It's Microsoft where if the deal turns out to get blocked 2 years later, that they'll have to go and spin off.
I don't think it's going to take
Activision.
2 years.
No, I don't
Whatever
either.
it is, I'm just saying the Activision shareholders will get paid. So I think that if Microsoft is willing, they would be amenable to amending the contract and closing over this thing.
And Hogue Law agrees. Hogue Law says that it's just literally just one page. But listen, I want to bring in Crispy Bomb and the Mag on the Lina Khan comments, and then we're going to talk about what Brad Smith had to say, because I'm gonna let everyone lead that, because I have the quotes, and the quotes are bombastic for sure. And there is some theory, according to tinfoil hat wearing Everborn Saga, that there may be some real oomph behind what Brad Smith had to say, and the fact that Sony is they have taken a real ugly stance in this, and I think at the end of the day, not only are they going to look bad for all of the industry, but I think Microsoft is going to eventually play hardball. And I think Sony could potentially get used against them, what they've been using against Microsoft, to make them smaller for what seems like a decade more. But Crispy Bomb, let's get your opinion on this, brother. Lina Khan, she says, and I quote, "It is going to either be there is no discussions here, litigate or not. We're not negotiating." Kind of seems like a bad starting point. What are your thoughts?
Man, don't I see like a ton of videos that these YouTubers make that have these interactions with police officers that do this type of stuff? I'm just saying, it's
and
just
it would
not
be
a good look.
considered illegal to
Yeah,
as a
dude.
police officer. And I'm here to tell you, I'm a former New York City police officer, known as officer friendly, so I never conducted any kind of behavior such as that.
And that's the beauty. I watch them and I'm like, what is this cop doing? And luckily, in my town, my area, I don't really get that type of interaction. Generally, as long as I'm respectful, I get it back, and they stay well within their rights. And that's where I look at the FTC and I'm like, you're bringing out this process of basically speculation. So you're speculating on what Microsoft could do. And I just it doesn't feel right. Going against the largest union in this country as well, I think it is a bad look. And if, like we say, this is really coming from the president of the United States in general, this stance, that's not a good look on his part. And, I think he needs to look at this, very wholeheartedly and look at, how many unions have endorsed him over his career, and how important unions are to this country, and say this fight is not logical. Now,
the CWA is the biggest union in the Americas, dude.
Yeah, and you look at that and you say, why are you going against something that generally doesn't happen? Generally, a union this large is going to fight their own fight because they are that large.
Right.
In this case, Microsoft presented them with something that they feel is unprecedented. And if we're going to call them big tech, we're going to call, we'll say Apple, Google, Microsoft. Okay. And then Amazon. All right. Well, you've seen the fights that some of these others, Amazon, for example, have had about unions. And Microsoft's like, nah, we're good. I mean, this would be a time to say, look, we're going to look over this deal, but we're going to talk. And for them to not be willing to talk, it's just, it baffles my mind. And it's like, well, what do you expect from Microsoft? Just lay all the cards on the table, say we're going to do this right off rip? Who would do that? What company would do that? You know what I mean? As it gets more and more into it, they say, look, well, this is your concern. Okay, we address it. You know, and they've been looking at the EU, the CMA statements and saying, okay, like, let's see if we can, you know, kind of remedy these things without even getting to that point. And I feel, you know, that's just a logical thinking company saying, look, we're willing to negotiate. And when, you know, the FTC is not willing to negotiate, and we're talking about two companies that are in America, okay, that are going to try to merge, and on top of that, a union, the largest one, sitting there saying, how is this possible? What are we watching? You know, it's one of those things that I just sit here, and as we continue to talk about, and you continue to see these crazy statements that you say, like, I fully believe that Microsoft needs to fight this. And if they really want to spin it hard, which they haven't yet, they could say it's for the workers. And who's going to go against that? Because they are endorsed now by them. So, you know, it's one of those things. I'm waiting for them to do it, because as we gets more and more, if the EU and the CMA pass this, or, you know, offer these concessions, maybe something else, you never know, there could be something added to it. Okay. If that happens, I think Microsoft, if the FTC says, no, we're not doing this, we're not negotiating, we're not going to do the same thing, they're going to start spinning it really hard. And I expect them
the
to.
CWA has already come out and condemned Lina Khan and the FTC for this. So they did a massive public forward-facing statement regarding this, and saying exactly what you're saying. You are ruining our shot at a seat at the table.
You're ruining everything.
Well, when you're going and looking at the way the other companies have acted, and for one to actually say, you know what, we're good with it, they're looking at it like, wait, what? You know what I mean? Like really? And then the government that, you know, usually, you know, backs the unions and you know, through court and litigation have you know,
well, because
prevailed
they're going to
over
heavily
time.
their influence on the next election is incredibly important. I don't know which way or the other the CWA is going to, whether they're considered Democrat or Republican. I don't know, but I can guarantee you that right now they're telling their members, well, we can't vote for Democrats because look what they're doing to us. They're killing an opportunity for us to have, for the first time in tech history, in gaming history, a union within gaming. The game developers, the people, the actual human beings with families and mortgages and lives that make the games that we sit here for hours and talk about and play, actually are going to have rights where they're not going to be crunched, and they're going to get the proper pay. I mean, look, it's happening right now with the Q&A testers at ZeniMax. 300 of them have formed a union with the CWA's help, and Microsoft is neutral. Go ahead, you want a union? Go have a union. It's okay.
Yeah, it's just something I don't understand it. I've never seen something like this. And you know, you look at these deals before. Okay, I get it. Like, she wasn't in charge then, but like, is there precedent as well? Like, hello, like,
yeah, there's political motivation. Who's to say that this is not her bid for? And we're going to get to you right now, Mag. Who's to say that this isn't her bid for president? Let's say, for instance, she has aspirations to be the first female president in 8 years.
I don't think that's what.
Well, she's British born, isn't she?
Oh, she is. So she can't run for. Okay, so if she's not an American citizen, she can't run. But the political aspirations are at the center of this. Crispy, do you have anything else you want to add, my brother, before we bring Mag in on the conversation?
I rest my case.
I love it. Mag, let's get to you, brother. Obviously,
yes,
this Lina Khan stance is not like we didn't expect it. She's playing hardball with, you know, big tech bad. I totally get that. But I do seem to believe, and this is my opinion, that this stance by the FTC is wrong. To basically, before anyone comes to their doorstep with the potential of a merger, it's, we're not even talking to you. Because what we do have confirmation on is that they didn't even want to listen to the 10-year deal in PlayStation Plus. They literally said, we're just going to sue. They didn't even come back to the table with this additional 10-year in law, signed into law, that we cannot violate this because we would be sued. They didn't even want to hear it.
Now, is it they or her?
Well, that's the question. I mean, based on this new interview from Axios, it seems like that. I mean, she is the chair. She is the
she gets to decide.
She gets to decide, not the FTC. She is the lead voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there's a lot I want to say about that, but I will get to that in a minute. But there's a couple things I wanted to say first about how where we're talking about the beginning of the evening here, where you guys were talking about the things that Brad Smith. By the way, it's taking a Herculean effort for me to not call him Brad Sams. It's pissing me off.
I've done that so many times, dude. I
keep calling him Brad Sams.
Same person.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
It's not the same person.
I know.
It's so funny though. I'm just like, oh my god, Brad Smith, Anthony, Brad
Jason
Smith.
Statham,
yeah,
at the same time. Joe Statham. That's right. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Jason Statham. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That whole thing. Remember that?
Keep it going.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Get back to what Brad Smith was talking about. Let me tell you something. This guy's a hell of a lawyer. Okay, when you sit back, you know what he just did? He divided and conquered each single sentence that Lina Khan said. Lina Khan is a 33-year-old grad student from Yale University. She's got her ass schooled, and she's going to get it schooled by this guy. She should get a pencil and a notebook because he's going to take her to town. And now here's the thing. Very interesting thing. Kay Asante was talking about the 70-30 situation, right? He's absolutely correct because Nintendo wasn't clearly part of that equation, right? He's like 70% Sony, 30% Xbox. But here's the thing. She said that. She was the one who obliterated Nintendo from the conversation. So you know what he did? She fumbled the ball, and he picked it up and said, oh, okay, so Nintendo's not part of it? Well, guess what? If Nintendo's not part of it, then you made yourself look even worse by saying that Sony is 70% and Microsoft is 30%.
Hey, Matt.
Now what?
Matt, can I quote a line?
Sure.
From the great Sean Carter.
Sure, please, by all means.
Yeah, I took your line. You was using it wrong.
Yeah.
Made it a hot line. I made it a hot song.
Oh my goodness.
There you go. And that's what's going to happen.
All the lines you could have taken from the man. Okay, I'm sorry. Continue.
Hey man, you know what? And you know what? Brad Smith is going to be dropping a hot album in 2023. I'll tell you that much. You better believe that that's coming. So here's the thing. Now you look at the whole situation. We talked about how all the concessions and everything else that were laid out, and how Sony said no. We understand why Sony would say no, but even if it's some way or form, let's say it gets to the CMA, and the CMA agrees to all these things, and it gets over there to the FTC, all of a sudden what ends up happening is Lina Khan is now standing on her own. Yep, she doesn't have any support behind her. She's literally going to be standing on that soapbox looking like a buffoon, because now she's going to say, well, I can't. She's not going to fight it, because then the desperation is going to look brutal, and that will directly affect the PR, especially for whatever political aspirations she has for the future. Because let's face it, she was popped into that position for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason is, but Joe Biden put her in that position, and it seemed to be a little bit shady. She seems a little young and inexperienced, but she happens to be a Democrat. Isn't that a strange coincidence? And I'm just starting to think that maybe there was some kind of a political move to get her into that position. And now I'm not saying that in any which way. I'm Canadian, okay? So I don't get involved in your politics. I just eat the popcorn and watch you guys. But anyways, the point is that, yes, your heart keeps laughing. That's what we do. We just watch from a distance. But the thing is, it's hard to not notice these kind of comparisons, right? So the thing is that you look at the situation. Let's say CMA does agree to those concessions. It's a win-win-win-win. I was on Colt Eastwood show on Monday with him and Gaz on Monday night. We were talking about that. And I said, guys, it's not a win-win. It's a win-win-win-win. Okay? They get 30% of those sales go to Microsoft on the PlayStation side. They're obviously going to get a lump sum to put it, let's say, into PlayStation Plus. There's number 2. Number 3, the microtransactions go to Microsoft. And then the sales to Steam and Nintendo and everything else with their 10-year deal, that also goes to Microsoft. That's a win-win-win-win. So if in the end, if this all falls, if anything else falls through and then they agree to that, it's still a win all around for Microsoft. So it's all good. And the thing is with the shareholders will continue to invest because it shows a strong, fortified future. Because that's the one thing that investors do not want to do, is if there's anything shaky, they will back out. And the other thing that Lina Khan's going to have to understand that if she blocks this deal, she is going to crush Activision Blizzard because those investors will leave. They are not going to put their money into something. It's like putting your money into crypto right now. That's not what you want to do.
Yeah,
you should have pulled out. You know what I mean? I was going to make a joke there, but I said, yeah, you should have pulled out while you had the chance. Heard that a few times. Anyways, in all seriousness,
the rhythm method.
Exactly. Thank you. But Asante almost hit the table. Now, here's the thing. That's what you got to look at. Okay, they're going to lose billions of dollars eventually in investment because they're going to look at it and say, this is a shaky future. I'm not throwing $100,000 in there, 200 grand, 300 grand, or a couple of million, depending on how big of a whale you are in the biz. Right. So you're not going to do that if there's uncertainty. She is creating uncertainty. So what's going to end up happening is, first of all, they're going to lose in every which way or form. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons why is going to be the financial sector is going to start putting pressure. You're going to have the Republicans are starting to creep up. You see what's happening with the primaries and everything else, or the midterms, in the United States. Things are starting to shift in another way. Okay, because things were split. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. But anyways, the other thing is, I was going to say very quickly, is that the judge in this situation. Now, the other thing that Brad Smith, the master lyricist, said, like when he took those numbers, what was it, 200 and what was it, 286?
268 versus 59.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So I said it backwards. My God. Okay. So 268 to 59, right? Here's the thing. Do you think the judge plays COD? Probably not.
No.
Right? If this judge is not, I mean, he might, but let's say most likely not. Here's the thing. This judge is going to simply look at numbers because his job is supposed to be fairly black and white with a little bit of gray area in there. But if you're looking at the hard facts, he's going to see that number and say, well, that's ridiculous. So they have 268, and then all of a sudden now Microsoft is going to have 60. That's a problem. He's not going to understand. He's not going to look into the ramifications of the impact of that one particular IP. He may look into it a little bit, but he'll say there's no legs to stand on. You can't put $70 billion up against one IP. That's ridiculous. They're going to throw that out of court. It's a waste of time. But my question is, and it's only a question I'm going to ask it sort of, what it is that what is the end game here? If I can see it, and everybody else can see it, they clearly can see it, especially the FTC. Lina Khan can see it. What is their end game if they know they're going to lose? What is the end game? I don't understand. I can't wrap my mind.
The motivation behind this is
what is it,
strange.
Boom? Yeah, what is it? Like I can understand, like Akea Sante said once again, I'm bringing him up again, is that, big tech bad. I understand that because he's 100% correct. There have been so many cases in the past and so many cases right now that are happening right now. And no, it's not conspiracy theory. The stuff is happening right now. All you have to look at, with pre-Elon Musk Twitter.
Yeah.
You see the Twitter files that are coming out and everything else. That's not bull crap. That's real. That stuff is real. All the stuff blocking people's tweets, strategically taking out people's tweets at certain times in order to sway something politically. All these other things are happening. That's big tech bad. Because what you're doing is you're changing the narrative of whatever the hell you're trying to do, whether it's political, whether it's entertainment, whether it's social, whether it's whatever.
But see, and to be fair, more in that big tech bad direction. Remember, we have lived through Facebook being tarred and feathered in the streets for that very purpose, right?
I was going to get to that.
We have lived through Amazon basically profiting from COVID and really becoming even more powerful than so the idea of big tech bad, that narrative, it's a scary narrative, but it's built up for a reason.
But you know what, Asante, you're right though, and that's right. Big tech bad is a real thing. You remember Zuckerberg's alien plastic face when he's in front of the Senate? He's like sitting there like all stoned while they're asking him all these weird questions and stuff that I'm sitting there going, yes, Zuckerberg, would you like to answer that question? I would like to know why you're going into my personal life and my personal files.
You know what, Mag, though? What upsets me about this whole situation is as much as big tech is bad and we want like actual questions to be asked, more often than not, when you get Zuckerberg on the carpet or any of those other similar C-class executives and whatnot, they ask them dumb, know-nothing questions that doesn't.
Well, that's also
forward,
part of the game too,
right?
because they don't want to upset them.
Well, I don't even think it's they don't want to upset them. They don't defer to their interns who are young, who actually know what's going on with technology.
Right.
Instead, they ask the questions, right? So, with bringing it back to the story at hand, you would think a 33-year-old in this world would know the right questions to ask and be able to call big tech bad to the carpet in the right way. But it looks like she just kind of picked one, and she just picked the wrong one.
Right.
And
Now
wrong
the thing
is,
is,
just picked all of them.
picked it,
Or
did someone tell her?
Yeah.
Well, maybe
that's the bigger question, because there's always a bigger fish. Okay, Qui-Gon Jinn said it. There's always a bigger fish.
At the end of the day, it's not about the merits of the case. There's something behind a veil that we're not seeing that's causing this stuff to happen. And everyone can see that it's ridiculous.
This is what I'm getting at. What is the end game? Who is the person behind that veil who's whispering in her ear saying, "We need you to do this"? Because it's 33, I don't care what anybody says.
It's Emperor
indeed. It is Palpatine. It's the Phantom Menace.
Rise, my friend.
It is. Yeah, rise. Yeah, Lina Khan.
Wow.
Yeah,
very good rendition. I appreciate that. That's good.
Yeah, I have so many lines I could say. But anyway, the thing is, there must be someone whispering in her ear. No way a 33-year-old, like you said, with more tech know-how than anybody else would look at this situation thinking that in the end, the whole point of this was supposed to be to protect consumers. The thing is benefiting consumers. How the hell can you not see this?
Yeah, it's bonkers.
The only one that
she went into it that way, Mag, right? Her law degree, her thesis was that you have to block everything big tech does, right?
Yeah, well,
so
that's ridiculous. And that's why she's going to get her ass schooled.
She will. I mean, obviously, the judges aren't on that, right? They're not on this. They will do based on merit. They're going to base it on what reality is, because eventually it's going to go to the Supreme Court if they don't do that, right? So. And the Supreme Court is not going to vote the same way with this activist thing. They're going to go by the Constitution. Is it allowed?
Right.
Good. I'm done. Right.
And that's it.
So,
You're right.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, but that's why she's doing it. She is an activist, and I applaud the activism. That actually is not a bad thing.
It's not a bad
thing. The legislation. You don't do it this way. You go to legislation. Right. You create the laws.
You create the laws to
exactly.
However, opinions
liberate and create the right laws. That's what should happen, right?
However, but why though? That's my question. The fundamental question at the end of the day is why.
Well, you know
why are you doing this? It doesn't make sense.
She wants to set
have to be able to divide and conquer.
So because somebody's going to say, "I don't want to spend the money." That's what she wants. She wants somebody to come up and say, "Well, I'm not going to spend the money. You win." She sets a precedent that you can do this, right? That in 20 years, you might be a problem. That's never happened. That's not what they do. They say in the next 2 to 3 years, are you going to cause a disruption enough that you will own the market? Okay, we can't let that happen. But if you're creating a new thing, cloud, right? And there is no market, right? We can't predict that you can somehow be a big thing, because we don't know where that's going to be. It may not exist, right?
Right.
It may crumble and fall at the end of the day.
3D TVs were all the phase until they weren't, right?
Call of Duty could fail in 5 years and be a stinker, and no one will play it ever again, and something else will rise. You know how video game franchises are. They're a hydra. One grows up, one dies, the other head comes in its place. Like, you don't know. So, they don't even know that COD's going to last 10 years.
And to that point, I don't know of a precedent where somebody has said your IP needs to be on a competitor in order to.
It's never happened. It's never happened.
It's
never
crazy.
Happened. It's clearly never happened.
What I don't understand.
Listen, look. Let me just say this: we are officially 90 minutes into the show.
Yep.
We have one major question. We have 625 people here in the chat. I cannot thank everybody enough for for making Double Barrel Gaming a thing. I put it out on Twitter the other day, folks. This year alone, and remember, this is relatively a small channel. We're not at 12K yet. We're close. But we'll get there eventually. For the record, we have surpassed 1 million views.
There you go.
In 2022, that is insane. We have I have all the numbers. I put it on Twitter. We have 25.7 million minutes of watch time, which is bonkers. And I cannot thank you enough. If you're just finding the channel for the first time, please, folks, consider subscribing. Help us get to that 12K. We're close. We're a few hundred away. I don't think we hit it by the end of the year, but we do have one major topic to talk about. That's going to be led by Everborn Saga, because I'm going to break down what Brad Smith had to say. And I think that Microsoft is in on this full. The wallet is open. The checkbook is blank. We have what he's going to say. I'm going to break it down in a second, and it's quite stern. But I have to catch up on the super chats. Shout out to Asante for putting them in there. I would have missed them all. The first two of the day come from Drawn TJ. He first says this after $2 super chat. Hi, everyone. Hello, Drawn TJ. The second one of $5 says, if I'm Phil Spencer, I would do a deal with Nintendo to help co-create a Nintendo console. Yeah, that Nintendo console is coming next year, and it's done. Trust me when I tell you they're going to launch it right alongside Breath of the Wild 2. I'm telling you right now that is in fact what's going to happen. Awesome. And then there'll be no conversation of, well, Nintendo really doesn't count. Yeah, that's dumb. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. G Mania 1 drops a $5 super chat and says, can Microsoft make these acquisitions behind closed doors and not make them public, and only announce them to them publicly when they're completed, only if they are not publicly traded companies? If they're publicly traded companies, they must go in front of the FTC.
What's another fun thing about that? Right now, a deal has to be under $100 million, and you don't have to go. Yes. Another place that Lina Khan is trying to expand is, she's trying to get rid of that threshold.
What about the Chinese? What about the Chinese with
foreign entities? Yeah,
10% here, 5% there, 4% here, 3% there, and nobody's noticing. That's what they should be watching.
Well, no,
slowly those snakes are taking everything.
It's funny.
The Chinese government is looking at Tencent, though. They had to slow them down on their acquisitions.
They are,
so they're looking to invest more in the West.
What's interesting is if you are a foreign entity and you want to come into the Americas and buy a company, there's nothing to stop you. There is no FTC. You can do what you want if someone is willing to sell. That is a problem. The regulators, the United States needs. If you try to go into Japan and buy Nintendo, the Japan have laws now. You can do that, but there are laws in place so foreigners outside of that region can't come in and buy up whatever they want. Any other country has that. You know who doesn't have that? The stupid United States. You can come in as a foreign tech company and buy whoever you want, and it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Wait a minute. Really? Wait a minute. Let's slow down a little bit, everybody. We are like America. The United States has the largest and most robust economy.
They do, but you can come in and buy American, and it's not a problem. There is no FTC to say. Well, not right now. Hopefully
not you, Boom. I was telling him.
Hopefully, you know what? I don't want to go down a dark path. The bottom line is, laws need to be brought into this country that prevent foreign companies from coming in and buying up everything. Tencent is a problem. Tencent is definitely a concern. They have made quite a few investments, and you do not see that happening in other countries because there's laws to prevent that from happening.
But this is a thought experiment, because I know we all say like Tencent bad, but why though? Right? I know they're buying a lot of stuff. Right?
That's too much of a question for tonight's podcast, brother.
Yes, we'll save it for another day, but this is for the chat, just for them to think about. We all think Tencent is bad. Explain to me why, other than they're buying a lot of stuff.
Well, okay. I won't explain to you why.
They actually made worse.
I won't explain to you, Everborn, but all I will say is look into Epic Games and the way they treat people who have opinions because of
something to be said about that.
They have done things.
They've done some things. Go look into it.
And it's not because of Tencent, it's because of their government.
Yes,
And that is the
exactly.
problem.
And
I think Hargeet knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Tencent
Eva
done
Buon, do a little
worse
bit of
things than
research.
Activision, as owned by themselves. Anyway, that's not for us to talk about now. That's another show.
That's for another day. Indeed.
You know what?
I feel
let
like
me
we should think
continue.
about.
Yeah,
that's
it's
all.
look, at the end of the day, that could be a 3-hour podcast on its own. I don't agree with it. I think that for them to come up and buy as much as they're buying without to be unchecked is a problem. I think that's a major problem. I think everyone would agree that that's a major problem, and again, a 3-hour podcast in the future. Why this changes need to happen, we'll have it. But today we have to get into what Brad Smith had to say, and it's like I said, it's really apparent their mindset. I know everyone says that Microsoft and Xbox is kumbaya. When I read what he had to say, you're going to think differently, folks. We have DeAndre Banks drops a $2 super chat and says Sony is making sure to burn everything down. Indeed, I agree. I think I've said this before. They are looking at a scorched earth, and they don't care as long as this deal is blocked. And I think that in itself is wrong. Dave Ramos drops a $5 super chat and says, how many first-party and third-party games would Xbox need to release every year for you to feel Xbox is consistent, assuming third-party games go into Game Pass? They need minimum, folks, in this, again, in my opinion, 3 AAA bombs per year to be in the
4.
Conversation of Sony. And some people would say 4. 1 per quarter is what they promised, and 1 per quarter is what, as a fan, I expect. 2023 is going to deliver that. I can't wait for that year to get here so we can see the fruits of their labors. But if you want to be a Sony, and I'm being facetious here, you want to be in the same conversation as Sony, you need to release 4 AAA first-party games per year, which is 1 per quarter. And then you tighten everything up with second and third-party deals. You have some indies in there,
and the double A's, right?
Yeah. So Nathaniel Sullivan drops a $5 super chat. Says, again, on my flight back home to DC, to Dallas from DC, and loving the in-flight entertainment. Keep it up. Well, thank you. So safe flight to you, brother. DeAndre Banks drops a $2 super chat and says, so when Sony buys someone, they should get it too. I'm not sure what that means, but Sony bought up 8 entities in the last 18 months. They've been spending money, folks. Don't sleep on Sony. They're spending money. Highlander 001, who's been a channel member for 6 months, drops a $5 super chat and says, the worry is not on the Activision shareholders. It's the Microsoft shareholders. They are not gamers. Does not take much to kill the deal. Potentially. Caper Grant, who's been a channel member for 17 months, says, great show and great panel and happy holidays to all of you, and happy holidays, and thank you for being here, brother. Thank you for the support. J Mo Money drops a $2 super chat and says, Everborn wants this blocked, so they go after Sega. And that is true.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. Sir X-Man drops a $5 super chat and says, doesn't the FTC realize Xbox has over 100 million voters that will remember this when the election times come if the deal fails? Xbox voters, mostly US. I mean, this is it. I mean that there might be some relevant, conversation there, but I don't think that really is where this stands. I think, and I've said this before, folks, one of the most important parts of this deal is not Call of Duty, folks. You can spin it however you want. Let's talk about the actual human beings that are currently working under a devil known as Bobby Kotick that have been, beaten and browbeaten and abused for years. And Microsoft, I'm not saying they're the white knight. I'm saying that Microsoft, there's a reason why, according to Glassdoor, they're the top 10 people to work for in the world. Okay, they're one of the best companies to work for in the world. There's a reason for that. And Microsoft taking over Activision, Blizzard, and King will set a lot of wrongs right. And the fact that the CWA has backed Microsoft, the biggest union in the entire country, That says something. And the fact that now developers, again, folks, I know there's a lot of people here who don't give a flying about developers because it doesn't matter to you because you just want your game when you want it. Maybe you're a millennial. You just want your game when you want it. You don't care how you get it. Well, you know something? People make these games and they matter. People matter. And this is an opportunity for these people to have a voice, to have a seat at the table. That's the important part of this deal. But I regress. We also have okay, so that's it. I have what and I want to go first to everyone on this. And in an open opt, in the Wall Street Journal, Microsoft Activision Blizzard's acquisition is good for gamers and is far from harming competition, and it will allow us to compete against more powerful companies through innovation. He also goes on to say Sony has emerged as the loudest objector to the acquisition. It's as excited about this deal as Blockbuster was about the rise of Netflix, calling basically Sony Blockbuster. But this is where it gets into the weeds, folks. He says the main supposed potential of anti-competitive risks Sony raises is that Microsoft would stop making Call of Duty available on PlayStation, but that would be economically irrational. A vital part of Activision Blizzard's Call of Duty revenue comes from PlayStation game sales. Given the popularity of crossplay, it would also be disastrous to the Call of Duty franchise and to Xbox itself, alienating millions of gamers. But this is where the Superman laser eyes come from. Let me see if I can find it right here. Let's see what he says. He goes on to say, that's why we've offered Sony a 10-year contract to make each new Call of Duty release available on PlayStation the same day it comes to Xbox. We're open to providing the same commitment to the other platforms and making it legally enforceable by regulators in the US, the UK, and the European Union. And he says this, and this is the threat, folks. This is the underlying threat that Everborn Saga wanted to talk about. He says, we continue to believe that this deal will expand competition and create more opportunities for gamers and game developers. He says, we have committed since day one into addressing competitive concerns, including by offering earlier this week proposed concessions to the FCC. While we believed in giving peace a chance, folks, just bear with Everborn here. We believed in giving peace a chance. We have complete confidence in our case and welcome the opportunity to present our case in court. So when you take we believe in giving peace a chance and you mix that with him literally calling PlayStation Blockbuster, there is an idle threat there, according to Everborn. Everborn, let's hear your thesis on this.
So when I first heard the quote from Brad Smith, not Sam's, I'm like, if you're talking to regulators who are concerned with foreclosure of your rivals, why would you allude to Sony being Blockbuster and you being Netflix? It didn't make sense at the time, right? But when all this news was coming out, I hadn't thought about the fact that everything going on with the FTC and them moving to sue and Microsoft and all that, that whole big media blitz in the days leading up to the FTC suit, that would have meant that Microsoft knew it was coming. And so the deal with Nintendo and the Gabe Newell coming out, like leaning on Gabe Newell and asking the CWA to urge them, wasn't to change their mind because apparently they weren't listening to you anyway. it was to set the narrative after the inevitable block that was to come. So a few days prior to the block, when Brad Smith compares Sony to Blockbuster, that's when he already knew they were going to move to sue. And so when you think of that comparison, Blockbuster, who refused to change until it was too late, and then Netflix, which ushered in the future of home entertainment, right? And then you hear Brad Smith say, we gave peace a try. What is the alternative to peace?
That would be war.
Right? So to me, this says that the gloves are off, right? To me, this says we knew that you led to this deal getting blocked. Now we are the kumbaya days are over, so to speak, right? And this can play out in more ways than one. And I know a lot of people think that, oh, Microsoft's going to go and buy up all the timed exclusives. I actually don't subscribe to that, right? I don't think that, because it's not. I don't think they're going to move with like emotion, but they are going to, if they need to compete in this space and Sony's hampering them to compete, there are many ways that a company like Microsoft could hurt Sony, and they may have nothing to do with gaming, right? And again, it's not just Sony either, right? Like Microsoft is one of the larger donors to the Democratic Party, right? Especially in the last election we had, right? Now, Lina Khan serves at the pleasure of the president, right? There is an election coming up in 2024. If this goes all the way in court, we'll be right around 2024. Will the Democrats want to go into an election where they have unions against them, and they have a Microsoft who traditionally gives more money to Democrats than Republicans? They do give money to both parties, but with $70 billion on the line, maybe Microsoft gives some more money to Republican candidates who will then sort of tip the balance of power. Or maybe there's a Republican president running that will put on a more conservative, that will appoint a more conservative FTC chair, right? Is that a game that the Democrats want to play? And the reason the reason this is even a discussion highlights why big tech is bad, because there are even those options to even say things like that.
Yeah.
Right. And I this is why I say, like, if Microsoft has the right of this whole thing, and I believe they do, whatever different sort of regulatory agencies are doing, if they're bringing cases that don't hold weight, let Microsoft deal with that. They probably have the best lawyers in the world on this, and they will work it out. I don't want to throw shade at the FTC, because Microsoft is a $2 trillion company, right? And they don't need us boo-hooing for them, right?
No, it's true. It's true. But I think ultimately what people, I want to bring this back to video games, right? Like that, and that's what we're here to talk about. The political aspect is dirty. I hate politics, folks. I truly do. I think politics is corrupt all around. I don't care. Money corrupts, power corrupts. Say what you want. I know that this deal has a lot to do with government. I don't want to really bring that into it, because I feel that's going to be like an anchor and drag it. I have a question I'm going to pose, and I'm going to go first to the Mag, because he's got to get out of here for 9:00. Keeping gaming at the forefront of the conversation. There have been a lot of people that have seen Microsoft get bushwhacked by Sony and their deals. I mean, it's happened time and time and time again. I mean, and it continues to happen. You know, if it's not a Hogwarts Legacy deal with an exclusive mission, it's Destiny guns that you never got. It's Forspoken, which good on that, because that's
Keep
not
it.
really you guys are not doing so good with that. It's Final Fantasy VII still never making the way of the Xbox. It's deal after deal after deal. When you see Brad Smith say that we tried the nice guy way, and Microsoft and Xbox have done the nice guy way, keeping gaming in mind, what do you want to see this kick to the balls that Microsoft got? What do you want to see them do in gaming to Sony? Do you want to see them give it back to Sony the way Sony's been giving it to them? That's the question.
Well, in regards to like we're talking about, like in terms of quality of games and releasing of AAA games.
No,
stuff
I'm
like
talking
that,
about
like,
just locking up deals, going out
locking up
there
deals.
and spending the money that they did not have at their disposal, but might now.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I mean, like, let's just say for argument's sake, this deal didn't go through. It doesn't not mean that they got $70 in their back pocket to just throw away or whatever. That money will be dispersed into different departments.
Right.
However, the thing is, there is a reality that, they have all these studios working on games, this and that. And let's say they get the Activision Blizzard deal, which they will. And that's going to go through as well, right? But the thing is, these games, as we well know, do not come overnight. It's been 4 years, 5 years. We've been listening to the same story, right? And those games still aren't here. So the thing is, they're going to have to continue to bolster Game Pass with third-party deals in order to keep it, in order to keep people's interest in there. Because you could see, as they like to say, the great unwashed are quite fickle. And they are, because if their attention gets drawn away from Game Pass, they're just going to leave. They're going to go where the hotness is. That's how it works. And the thing is, they're going to have to do that. And it's not to battle Sony. It really isn't. I mean, in an indirect way, it is to battle Sony. But the thing is, what it's doing is that it's battling Sony in a way, like I said, indirectly, by keeping people's attention on Game Pass. So what you're going to have to do, what they're going to have to do more of, is get those High on Lifes in there. Get those Lego Star Wars in there. You don't have to get the giant ones that are going to take everybody's attention, because A, it's going to cost a lot of money. B, there's going to be way too many eyes, a lot of suspect eyes on them. Get those Gotham Knights in there. Get those Dying Light 2s in there. Get these games that people are sort of on the fence about purchasing, but they want to play them. So get those games in there so that people can get into there. But they need to they have to play that Sony playbook. Look at how Sony does things. They have 2 big releases a year, sometimes in the rare case 3, like this year, like 2022. But it seems like the entire 12 months of the year was dominated by Sony, because they snap up these third-party deals and marketing deals. And so they give the impression to the Joe Six-Packs out there who are not listening to the show, who are not on Twitter, who are not arguing in spaces for 7 hours. Why don't you guys have jobs? Anyways, like that kind of stuff.
Jeez,
right?
man, you didn't have to make it personal.
But I don't know who the hell could talk for 7 hours, and I'm like, don't you have places to be? Don't you eat? Like, anyways, but besides that, some of these spaces are ridiculous. Anyways, the thing is, those people don't know this. What they do see is they see the big bright blue of the Sony PlayStation banner on every goddamn game that comes out, and then it makes it seem the dominance is always there, even if it's a facade, because you could get that game anywhere else. The point is, it works. Getting Callisto Protocol for PlayStation because of the extra features that are coming with that game. I am getting Hogwarts Legacy. Well, actually, I got a Hogwarts Legacy on both, funny enough. I got it gifted to me on PlayStation. Not gifted to me, but through my game share partner. But I'm going to play it on PlayStation because of all those extra features. I watched the developer the sit-down developer thing, and the features going into the PlayStation 5 version are extraordinary. They're not frivolous. They're really, really cool. And I want to be a part of that. So I'm going to play it over there. That's how they steal attention away. This is what Microsoft has to continue to do to move forward. Okay, so ABK or not, they're going to have to continue to do that. And even with ABK, they're going to still have to do that because ABK, sure, they could do a big Game Pass dump of like, let's say, I don't know. All right, the first 6 months, dump the first 10 Call of Duties in there, right? And then the next month, dump I don't know, or 6 months later, dump all the crashes in there, and then the Diablos and whatever the hell else, right? You could do all that stuff, and that's great. But what happens after you've done all that? In a year from now, 2 years from now, all of a sudden the guys from Senua Saga go, guys, we're having some trouble here. We need another 6 months or whatever. What are you going to do? You're going to sit there and you're going to tell your customers for the 19th time, just wait a little bit longer? No. Those people are going to say, you know what, enough. And you know what? A lot of people are starting to say enough.
People are starting to get frustrated. Yeah.
They're starting to get frustrated right now.
There's definitely a consensus among Xbox gamers that
They're
they're
pissed.
frustrated. Yeah, it's the truth.
And you know what? I'm about to play High on Life, which I'm really excited for. But guess
Really
what?
good.
I haven't turned on my Xbox in 2 months.
Mm.
I haven't turned it on since Call of Duty, and I played the first couple of weeks, but then God of War came, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to start this. Well, guess what? Now it's got me by the balls, and I can't stop playing it. But then now I'm going to go right into Callisto Protocol, right? So, like, these are all the things that are happening. This is how they steal away attention. Doesn't mean I'm not an Xbox guy anymore. Of course I am. I have 4 of them in this house.
No,
I'm always going to be an
Pony
Xbox guy.
Master 420, man. We
I know, but Pony Master 420 behind the scenes, right? But that's the thing. It's all about, once again, I hate to keep saying it, mind share. You keep doing that. So like I said, ABK at the end of the day means nothing. They're still going to have to do those. They're going to have to make all those moves to continuously get people's attention. And that is the thing that I will always preach, and I'll never stop preaching. But anyways, I'm going to shut up to let you guys talk. And I do have to get going, guys, because I got some calls to make. So
yeah, we'll check you out, brother. Thanks for
you
thanks
guys
for
have
hanging
a
out.
great
Always a
night.
pleasure.
Thank you guys so much. We'll talk in the private chat. You guys were amazing. We'll see you guys all next week.
Hey,
Hargeet.
Boom.
Yes, sir.
Just 30 seconds. The one thing that I didn't get to say in terms of what that means, Blockbuster, whatever. One way that Microsoft can get back at Sony, they can look at all of their acquisition targets and just outbid them on everything, right? Because none of Sony's acquisition targets are going to be anything that ring the antitrust threshold bell, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at Square. I'm just going to outbid you on Square. You're looking at this individual studio here. You're looking at Don't Nod. I'm going to outbid you on that too, right? And you can outstep them at every mark and still keep to your core principles of we don't want to spend all of this money on these timed exclusives that we don't own, right?
Yeah,
So there's other ways around it than the timed exclusive route that I think.
I mean, look, the time exclusive stuff when it comes to brand recognition, it works. Mag just said it. Everywhere he goes, he sees Sony marketing. Hargeet, I want to bring you in on the conversation regarding this. Keeping gaming in mind, it appears that there is a bit of frustration with this deal. We're all frustrated. Microsoft's frustrated. I think ultimately the deal is going to go through. I think the CMA is going to see it the way that it's supposed to be seen. I think that the EU is going to see it. And I think ultimately Lina Khan is in trouble. I'll say that. But I want to keep this on to gaming. Do you feel that Microsoft have the gauntlets have been dropped? You know what I'm saying? Like there's been a lot of talk with, you hear it all the time. Xbox is too kumbaya. They're not cutthroat enough. They don't do the marketing deals like Sony. And we know why Sony does it. But do you think that is something that Xbox needs to do? And isn't an open opt by Brad Smith to suggest that is in fact what they're going to do?
Well, look, he's doing what the lawyer needs to do, right, to get the deal done, right? Phil is still Phil. I don't know that he's going to go scorched earth. He could. Obviously, they have the money to do it, right? They could definitely go do it. And Sony has already done that in the past, right? And they continue to do so. They've already been doing incremental steps, right? And one of the things they have as a benefit is they're all in on Game Pass. So they don't really have to take exclusivity. They could just say, we're going to have it day and date in Game Pass.
Yeah, and that in itself is an exclusive, right?
It does. It makes
yeah.
it an exclusive, right?
Yeah.
Because look, who's going to pay the $70 when you can just be a part of the subscription and you just get it, right? and the optics of it are so good for Microsoft, it works in their benefit anyways, right? They'll automatically get the marketing deal. They're going to have it in day and date in Game Pass, and that enough, that is enough of a exclusivity. And yet you win in the battle that you're not actually taking it away from anybody. If anybody else wants it, go for it, right? We're not blocking anyone. Go ahead and take the game, and no problem. Wherever the developer wants to publish it, enjoy, right? But we get the exclusivity by saying day and date and Game Pass, right? So when you see those logos, it's going to have Game Pass as one of the logos, right? And I think that is kind of the way that Phil would look to to do something like that. Could they do the other way they're doing it? They're doing it here and there. But yeah, I don't know that they would go the same way that Sony does, because I don't.
That's because Sony doesn't have Game Pass, so that day and date really is the exclusive.
I mean, they do
play.
if they want to take advantage of it. They do have PlayStation Plus Premium Extra, all that stuff, right? They could do this if they want to. Nothing stops them from doing it except themselves, right? So they could do the same thing. But I don't know that Phil will suddenly go that far. Maybe they will. Maybe they're getting ticked off enough that they will. I certainly see that if ABK is expanded out, I certainly think the next marketing deal is already signed with Xbox. I don't see them going to Sony. I think the next marketing deal for COD, it's Xbox, right? So I think that would happen. But as far as like trying to do the things that Sony does, I think Phil specifically doesn't want to do those things. He wants to have a different type of gaming experience for the consumer. And I think he's been kind of veering away from it. He's pulled in some exclusivity contracts with people, and he hates it, but he does it because like Sony keeps
it's a necessary evil, unfortunately.
It is, right? So he does a 3-month deal or a 6-month deal and says, okay, let it go. Then I'm not going to do these multi-year things. But Tunic, we'll do the 3-month, 6-month thing, and it can be on PlayStation after that. And we had that with what was that one, like the horror game that came out near the launch?
You're talking about the one from that makes Layers of Fear.
Blue, whatever it was. Blue, yeah. Medium, right? And again, it was like 6 months, and they're like, oh, go ahead. We're not going to block you for too long. But they're doing these small deals, right? I think the better answer is just Game Pass. Game Pass just makes it so easy. Yeah. Just put it in Game Pass, and you don't have to worry about the exclusivity. You've made it exclusive by just putting it in Game Pass. So I think that's where they're going to go with it. Not to veer into politics, but just to add that, folks, if you really feel like you're stuck with what's there, no, go talk to your representatives. There's nothing stopping you from doing that, right? Don't worry about what party they're at. Look, talk to them about what you feel. They're here to represent you. If you think this is something you want your representatives to go, look into, go talk to them. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. So and see, just tell them what you think, right? That's totally fine.
No, that's good stuff. Listen, Wandering Dutch, let's get you in on the conversation. It's super late by you, so we want to get you in and out. Hargeet brings up a great point. He says that the play here is Microsoft to double down on Xbox Game Pass, and I think he's right. Like I don't really see times exclusives don't do anything for me. They other than they annoy me. Like I said, Final Fantasy VII, I bought on a PlayStation, but I really wanted to play it on my Xbox, and well, I'm still waiting to do that. Forspoken was a game that I might have considered, investing in, but after that demo, the answer is, well, I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Do you believe Hargeet Chani's, ideology of, what, they need to double down, add more, if that's even possible, to Xbox Game Pass instead of timed exclusives like Sony is doing? Because, like I said, the Brad Sam's comments suggest that they're no longer, quote unquote, messing around. Like this is big business. Sony's crying has interrupted what is expected, which is the biggest deal in gaming. And like I said, it was their crying and their complaining, and they're going from Jim Ryan going to here, there, and everywhere to tell regulators how bad this deal was. Now, does Microsoft double down, adding even more to Xbox Game Pass?
Yeah, I think so. Personally, I think to be honest, I think that's Microsoft's long-term goal anyway. I think they've mentioned this numerous times, and I've said this in the chat as well. Xbox specifically are looking to get away from, should we say, timed exclusive third-party AAA IP stuff where they purchase rights for 6 months to a year for big AAA stuff on the platform in general. I think their main focus is just getting. They don't care where that game is, but if they've got the access to that game in Game Pass on day one,
Yeah.
that is as big as, if not bigger to them, than any exclusivity agreement ever would be.
Yeah.
It doesn't harm any of the other platform gamers. Platform holders is a separate story, but platform gamers, they don't lose access to a game that's coming out day one on their platform just because it goes into Game Pass. Now, of course, Sony are going to dislike it because it means that they theoretically could lose out on revenues if somebody knows it's in Game Pass on the other platform and happens to have two of the consoles. Now, in a realistic world, though, aside from the hardcore minority, not every gamer in the world owns every platform.
That's correct.
Which
Yeah.
means that the likelihood that they're going to go out and specifically buy a platform just because a third-party game is in Game Pass is very minimal. Even the Call of Duties, like we're talking about, as we have, the reason we game on Xbox is because our entire friend list, etc., that's dated back a decade or more for some of us, is Xbox. It's primarily Xbox. So if we go over to PlayStation, like all of my friends that are on PlayStation primarily have a PlayStation for the exclusives, which means the multiplayer aspect isn't there.
Right.
Like once in the blue moon, we'll play one or two games, but it's not the same as going on Xbox, having hundreds of friends on there. And likewise, for primarily PlayStation gamers, having an entire friend list of friends that play multiplayer games over there, your Call of Duties, etc., they're not going to shift over to Xbox just for Call of Duty primarily because they don't have the friends list over there. They would have to start from scratch. They would have to start their achievements from scratch. The X, Y, and Z. There's many reasons as to why people have a platform and stick to a platform, and it's not like Apple v Android. Once you're into that ecosystem and you've got everything set for that ecosystem, it's going to be very difficult to move away from that full time. You're always going to call that home, as it were.
Yeah.
And that's primarily for Xbox. What they realize, like, we're not going to win the vast majority of the mindshare on console. So what's the point in taking these things away from other gamers when we could simply just let them all have it, but provide our gamers, the ones that primarily play Xbox, a benefit on Game Pass, which is that they don't have to pay extra to access this thing. It's going to be in Game Pass. Eventually it'll leave, but you can buy it at a discount before it does. Whereas everybody else in the world still gets access to it on their preferred platform as well. That is the best route, to be honest. And Sony should look to do that as well. Like, primarily for them, it would be more cost effective and cost effective for the developers that they work with if they just went to them and said, listen, we'll give you the exclusivity payment to put it in PS Plus. We still get the gamers. Everybody else gets access to it. But those of us on PlayStation have that huge benefit where the gamers don't have to pay extra for Call of Duty or don't have to pay extra for whatever, Final Fantasy or whatever it is. Like, use that as a tool for yourselves. Gamers will ultimately look at it fondly. Like, I spoke to somebody in work today that is primarily a PlayStation gamer, was on the very basic PS Plus thing, and he didn't realize that they'd rebranded. And I was like, upgrade to Extra. Like, if you go upgrade to Extra, you're getting access to Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Death Stranding. Like, look at all these PlayStation games you can access by just moving up a little bracket instead of going out and spending money on these games individually that you don't necessarily need to. And he's just a casual gamer. So now he's like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Like, it's only an extra £3 a month. And now I've got access to all these games on PlayStation Plus. And it's a lot of casual gamers don't realize this. There was another guy that was going to go and buy Spider-Man for his kid for £20 in the shop. And I was like, well, you could, but you can get PlayStation Plus for 13, and like you have access to that and its DLC, Miles Morales, and 500 plus other games in PS Plus. And it's the same for Xbox gamers. Like, casuals don't know about these services, and it provides so many benefits to the casual market, especially right now when we've got recessions worldwide, etc.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's saving people so much money, and these kids, especially, you know what kids are like. They'll get a game, they'll finish it, they'll drop it, it's on to the next thing. They'll get a game, they'll finish it, they'll drop it, it's on to the next thing. The only games that really catch their imagination or catch them for a long time is Fortnite, Roblox, Call of Duty, Minecraft.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. There's your hardcore. That's the kind of solid foundations you've got for kids there. Outside of that bracket, every other game they drop, like, again, that same person, his cousins literally just finished God of War Ragnarok. So he came to his house and said, "Oh, well, you can have it now. Let's see it. Bye. Done." Like, he's not going for the platinum. He's not keeping it. He just give the game away because he's finished with it. And unfortunately, that is what kids do.
Yeah.
They get a game to finish it.
Well, their attention span is not like ours. Let's just say
exactly.
that is
so
for sure.
PlayStation need to do the same wavelength, essentially. That's what I'm thinking. Same wavelength. Nintendo are a whole nother beast, as we know. But PlayStation and Microsoft really need to get on that same wavelength. It's not to take away from any other platform for these third-party. Yes, continue create your awesome first-party games that are exclusive to your platform. That is fine. You're creating them. You're investing your full money into making these games happen, which is why you need to keep kind of chugging that thing and exploring these options for first-party stuff. But when it comes to third-party AAA IPs, that is ultimately the route that Xbox are going down. We've seen it get bigger and bigger as time has went on with Game Pass. With the likes of MLB,
Game Pass is ridiculous.
Yeah, with the likes of MLB, with High on Life, with all of these awesome titles we're getting in day one into Game Pass, it's phenomenal. And that's the kind of thing I'd love to see Sony do, but Sony are too bothered about the marketing rights of games and exclusivity agreements, and this is the only place you can play it. Like, just focus on having the only place as your first party.
Yeah.
Third party stuff, let everybody have it. Why not? What benefit does that give you other than bragging rights?
Well, they're look, to your point, the Sony is old, is an old dinosaur.
Old school.
That's the problem. They have an old way of doing business, and they're just not moving quick enough with the times. Okay, Santa, let's bring you in on the conversation. Does Microsoft need to double down? Do you think that this open opt by Brad Smith suggests that we already know that Microsoft is all in on gaming? We know that for a fact. Otherwise, they wouldn't be spending $70 billion in an attempt to get Activision Blizzard King. Do you think that as many games as we know have been released this year and are coming in 2023, do you agree with Hargeet that exclusive ideology should be doubled down on? Do you think that's where they're going?
Excuse me. I think there's a little bit of all of that, and what I think they should do and what they will do are usually tend to be two different things. But what I think they should do is walk and chew gum at the same time, right? Excuse me. People were complaining that the Game Awards that they didn't represent, and whatever context that why they didn't represent, it made gamers upset, and rightfully so, right? The gamers. I know a specific wandering Dutch that was looking forward to seeing Hellblade 2. You know what I'm saying? Like whether there's context there or not, who gives a crap? We're gamers. We wanted to see some games, right? So for whatever reason why they are where they are with it, they need to be able to continue on all fronts. And if they can't, then they need to make a very important decision. And I think that the gamers should win. Right. As we see right now, it seems that they keep putting everything on hold in waiting for the decision on this, on the ultimate decision here, which, hey, it makes sense. But if you see that if you're seeing that the FTC and all the regulatory bodies are making this thing not as quick and as easy as it can be for you, you need to stop keeping your eye on that ball and remember that you have a bunch of gamers that you're cultivating, right? And so far, it looks like they have been spending that political capital of, hey, we know that gamers are fickle, so eventually when we get to them and we show them the bangers, they'll forget all this stuff, which it's true, right? But as Hargeet and other folks have already mentioned, at some point you get to a place with it where your consumers are just kind of done with you. You know, they're sick and tired of the next month. Wait, just keep waiting. Next year, next E3, right? They're basically done with that. And we on this panel and many in this community who spend a lot of time, you know, focused on all this stuff, we can understand the context. But still, as a gamer, I refuse to let them get away with the idea that in the calendar year 2022, I really had no real like AAA first party bangers. I had super interesting things in Game Pass. I don't take that away from them. And from my use case, I like Game Pass. I like the options that it provides for myself and my kids. But still, you know, that's not what you came that's not what you came to the market with, right? That's not what you promoted when you got Game Pass and you asked for people to really like jump into that ecosystem. It was first party AAA, you know, bangers, if you will. You know, they would be there. And since that time, you've been pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. So, you know, as to what Brad is saying now, it seems they're getting bold, right? Because they've been very strategic for a long time, right? They've been very mea culpa for a very long time, and people always like, oh, we're getting sick and tired of that. They have to do that. They're the biggest company in any room they walk into, right? You can't both be the biggest company in every room you walk into and be super aggressive. You'll be having the Lina Khans of the world on your butt all day at that point, right? They have to be strategic in their moves. So I suspect that because of all their strategy and all their mea culpa moves, and they're still getting as much pushback as they are, they're now basically saying the gloves are coming off because clearly our strategy of being mea culpa and working with people isn't working, right? So I get that part. But at the end of the day, whether that's their new mode or not, whether they're money hatting more or whether they're doing more timed exclusives or whatever, as gamers, as Xbox gamers, we should be seeing the benefits of our purchases, of our subscription services. And so far, it looks like they can't walk and chew gum at the same time. Hold on a minute, I got to go deal with the FTC. And while they're gone, you're sitting here waiting, right? That needs to stop. You know, we know that, you know, there's a chance that this thing could go into litigation for years, right? There's a chance that 2-3 years, there is a chance. Doesn't mean it will, but there is a chance that that Lina and the FTC will be batting it back and forth. Lower courts, this court, appeal, another appeal, before it finally gets to the Supreme Court, which, by the way, the Supreme Court is not mandatory. It's not a requirement. It's not that it will go. They choose whichever case they want. Obviously, they'll probably pick this one because it's a $70 billion deal, but still, it's not a mandate. It's not like, oh yeah, this is the path. They could just say, nope, we're not weighing in on it at all. You know what I'm saying? Those are the choices that they choose to make. But I will say, you know, at the end of the day, as us gamers, we should keep holding their feet to the fire, because whether or not they choose to fight this battle on both fronts or not, they should also be providing you what you came here for in the first place. And looking at what they did here at the Game Awards, it looks to me like they're not capable, or they're unwilling to do that, you know, fighting on both fronts, walking and chewing gum at the same time thing. And we need to make sure they do that. So that's
good stuff.
My take.
No, I love it. Crispy, close us out, brother. Let's talk about it. You are, like myself, a huge proponent of Xbox Game Pass. Like I tell everyone, and I keep reiterating, I'm a retired guy. My pension is great, folks. There's no complaints with it. I worked real hard for it, and I'm happy to have it. But there are limitations to it. Before, I used to work overtime when I was going to buy a slew of games. That's just what I did. But Game Pass allows me to not have to worry about a lot of these big games because they're in Game Pass. So for my $15 a month, I get it. Would you like to see, Crispy, Microsoft, you know, Brad Smith gets out there and says, you know, we tried peace. Well, after peace, if you have no peace, you have war. the way that they can have their war is to go out of their way to spend some real dollars and lock up games coming into Game Pass. They don't have to make them exclusive because that's the exclusive itself. But would you do you want to see that happen, Crispy?
I want to see things getting locked up in Game Pass. I'll tell you that much.
Okay.
I mean, you look at the deal with EA. How hard would it really be for them to start dropping games day and date for a big old lump sum of money? Is it really that hard? I mean,
If you're gonna go to war, you gotta spend money, brother.
Whatever happened. What's going on with Ubisoft? Remember that? Remember when?
And what happened to Ubisoft Plus, folks? Yeah,
yeah. I'm curious. These are things that you can do. They need to market more, man, and you need to get the marketing rights to some of these big games. How about Jedi Survivor? How about when it comes up on screen, it looks great. All this spiel has a little bit of gameplay in there on a commercial on the NFL, and then it says Xbox, and that's it. Doesn't say anybody else. That's where you stop kumbayaing, all right? Doesn't need to say PlayStation, everything else. Just say Xbox. That's all. That's what PlayStation does. End of it. PlayStation. Okay? Like, that's what they do. So people will be like, oh, that game's only on PlayStation. I swear to God, I have people all the time that do this in front of me. Oh, what's that game? Oh, I have to get a PlayStation? No, just go look it up. People don't want to do that. I don't know why. Google's there, but they won't go. They'll be like, oh, that's on PlayStation. And these are things that they need to do. Okay, you don't have to, lock up. You could do your 6 months. I think beyond that, it puts, egg on Phil's face because of the way he's talked earlier. And regardless of what Sony does, you still said it. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta tread lightly. But I mean, they got to do some good stuff this upcoming year. It's very important. Us gamers, we're sitting here like, dude, you didn't give us anything. Do we kind of know why? Sure. But that little goodwill, that's going to get real short real quick. And I think we all can agree on that. So they need to go no holds bar regardless of what's going on with this. Because I mean, if their case is that good, that he is that confident, they should not have to be holding stuff back. And I'll leave it at that.
I mean, it's good stuff, brother. Everyone had great points. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this almost 2.5 hour show. I got to catch up on a few of the super chats that have popped in here. Let me find them real quick. There was a $10 one that I want to. Here we go. We have Jimbo Jangles, good friend of the program, someone that gave me a gift that I'm going to cherish the rest of my life. He made me a Series X G.I. Joe controller. I put it out there. And he even added my father's line to the back of it. It's crazy how amazing that was. So shout out to him. He drops a $10 super chat and says Xbox is like my Denver Broncos. So much money spent and nothing to show for it yet. And you're not wrong. Special Nick, good friend of the program, one of the lead voices over, of course, at the Xbox era. He drops a $2 super chat to simply say, lucky one bad mother isn't here because he smells. And yeah, that's not right. But they have a thing going on. Royal Boyle 78 drops a $5 super chat and says, sad thing is Sam just don't want to admit that the last few years have been truly Microsoft versus Microsoft battling themselves to just deliver. I mean, there's something to be said about that. They kind of shoot themselves in the foot sometimes. I think they're on a good trajectory. That's just my opinion. And Jimbo Jangles drops an additional very generous $5 super chat and says, appreciate the show as always. Boom. Game Pass 1 month code. So snatch it up, folks. If you're quick, I'm not that quick. So thanks so much for the generosity. Let's get everyone out of here. Hargeet Chani, thanks so much for not only joining tonight, but joining the panel. It's going to be great to have you here each and every week. Talk about it, brother. Where could people potentially check out your YouTube channel and talk about Game On Daily? Someone, obviously those guys over there, Gaz has been on fire recently. Yep. He is who we thought he was. Talk about it, brother.
Yeah, so check out Game On Daily. It's gameondaily.com and then youtube.com/Game On Daily. I do have a few YouTube videos of my own that are up on my channel, but I'm going to try to put more stuff on Game On Daily. My channel is just at HargeetChani1, the number 1. So youtube.com/that. And then HChani on Xbox. That's probably the best way to find me.
Nice. Well, listen, Wandering Dutch, sell your brand, brother. Talk about episode 100, and more importantly, the charity stream, the 24-hour charity stream happening very soon.
Yeah, so thank you again, and thanks for the shout out for the 100th episode as well at the beginning. Of course, this week is all charity streaming, and of course, this weekend is the big one. It's the 24-hour stream for Special Effect. So, Special Effect is a charity that essentially helps disabled kids play video games, which, of course, obviously regular kids do on a daily basis and are very kind of lucky to do so. But those disabled children would absolutely love to be able to join in with their friends and be able to play video games with them as any normal child would do. And Special Effect help facilitate that, whether it be through adaptive controllers or tools or eye control or whatever it is. They help to fund that and provide that to children so they can actually join in and play video games like any normal kid would. So that's who we're raising money for this year. Of course, it's absolutely awesome. I want to give a shout out quickly to our other half, the European guys, who have already smashed through a €1,000 target and done 1,100 for Villa Joop. We're a Dutch charity that help kids with neuroblastoma, which is a rare form of cancer in children. They've already smashed through their weekly target, and it's only day 3 out of the full week. So huge congrats to them. So that's one charity smashed target. Next charity, $380 into it so far, and 1,500 is the target. So that's what we're looking for, and hopefully we can smash through that on the weekend. But yes, going live at 6 a.m. Eastern. So very early for the Americans there, 6 a.m. Eastern, all the way through, and on Saturday, all the way through until 6 a.m. Eastern on Sunday. So any support is appreciated. Any little donation, whether it be $1, $2, $5, whatever it is, every little helps. Be amazing to see people there as well. And we've got a schedule up, and the community are welcome to join into any of the games on that schedule that are marked with community. So there's quite a few, including Call of Duty and Halo and Killer Instinct and things like that. So feel free to jump on if you want to.
Absolutely, brother. Well, like I said, Mrs. Boom and I will be running through, and we're going to drop a nice donation, because obviously giving back is what we stand for, and we love you that you and your team stand for that as well. Kay Asante, sell your brand, brother. You got a big show coming up this Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Gaming Circle podcast, in the hunt for 1K, and you're not too far, brother. Sell it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you allowing me to do that. No, but first and foremost, I want to thank everybody for coming out, and of course, Mr. Hargeet Chani for joining us permanently. There's going to be some awesome debates coming through this week, so it's always great. K Asante, TKO Asante, Xbox, PlayStation, all the places you want to find me. One half of the Gaming Circle podcast co-hosting crew. This week, I actually just got confirmation we have Ty Talks coming back to.
Hey,
awesome. We love that dude.
Yes, appreciate that. He's always good with the good takes. With all the news going on, so I'm expecting to hear some really good, interesting things from this show as well. So no, just come check us out. Appreciate everybody who continues to support us as we make our march to that 1,000 subscribers. I think we're like 100 and so subscribers away. We're so close. But
hey, you're about to be the other half of On the Real with all this news coming out, man.
Henry Cavill not coming back as Superman.
How do you do that, man? Dirty like that, man. Quit. He left his wife for you, man. And then you're just gonna break up with him.
This
so
is-
messed up. We need to have more conversations about that. But
listen,
anyway,
I love James Gunn, but this is a bad move, folks. I'm gonna say that right now.
I'm not a big fan
Serenity in the
of
chat
what's
says
happening
Hargeet
here.
is awesome. I'd have to second that notion.
We
there, so
agree.
there you go.
Indeed,
Yeah.
we agree. Absolutely, absolutely. So no, thank you guys so much for coming out, and I'm sure we'll see you guys next week. And thank you for the continued support.
Thank you so much for that. Crispy Bomb, sell your brand, brother. Talk about where you're going to be tomorrow night. Is it tomorrow night or is that already tonight? I don't. Yeah, it is tomorrow night because tomorrow's Thursday, folks. I've had a migraine for 2 days, so bear with me, please. It's been tough. Tomorrow you're going to be on the next podcast. I'm sure there's going to be a lot to talk about. Where could they check that out? And more importantly, reach out to you on social media.
Oh man, it's been a great show. Shout out to you, Hargeet. Welcome to the arcade, as I like to call it. And yeah, it's at Crispy Bomb on Twitter, Crispy Bomb 28 Xbox Live. Tomorrow I will not be on Next, unfortunately. I have an executive coming Friday. So in layman's terms, my hell week, which was supposed to start Sunday, is now starting tomorrow. So Butcher Hell Week has begun. I will keep you people posted. I will literally just put I'll be there if I'm going to be there. And then 2 weeks from now, I don't know if I'll be here because it's my birthday. So
yes,
we'll see. We'll see what happens there. You never know. I mean, I don't know if the significant other has something planned, but I will keep everyone posted and see you next time.
Yeah, brother. Thank you so much. And a happy early birthday, brother. We'll be talking because we talk on a regular basis. And of course, Everborn Saga, sell your brand, brother. Talk about the Everborn Saga and where they could find you on social media.
Well, the answer to all those questions is Everborn Saga. You can go to everbornsaga.com and get the books that we have put together. And I promise you want to catch up on the series right now because we have so many things planned for the future. I've been leaking little panels from the upcoming Ariel's Adventure Chapter 2. We got the Redlands Chapter 2 coming. We got a whole new series called The Remnant on the way. Chapter 1 is done, but we want to release Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 at the same time. So big things happening on that front. Game is still in the works. Lots of things happening for 2023. So check out everbornsaga.com. And who knows, maybe check out Everborn Saga on YouTube, where we're going to have to bring back a certain show where we talk about
I think it's relevant
because it's crazy out here.
These movie streets are crazy.
There you go. Avatar's about to drop this weekend. Maybe there'll be a review. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Well, we definitely got to talk about On the Reels. Excellent, and love that. We definitely got to bring it back. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. We had over 600 people here. Actually, I think it was closer to 625 people, which is amazing. If you're new finding the channel for the first time, consider subscribing. Don't forget, this Friday, ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. BoomStick and I are celebrating our 5th annual Christmas with Mr. and Mrs. BoomStick. We are giving away, for the first time in channel history, $1,000 in 2 hours. 5 $100 gift cards up front to channel members exclusively, and the back end of the show, $500 to anyone, or 5 $100 gift cards to anyone that gets picked by the picker in the chat. It is going to be by the time this deal is done, folks, Mrs. Boom and I will have given out this year alone $3,500 worth of digital prizes. And that doesn't come from corporate sponsorship, folks. That comes from our pockets. That comes from super chats. That comes from channel memberships. And we do it thanks to you, because otherwise we can't do these big giveaways. Again, I'm going to close out the show, folks, with something that's important to me. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. BoomStick and Friends.